Chapter 379 Zhu Xuan Er. Chapter 379 Zhu Xuan Er. Reverie _ This white-clothed girl was like a celestial fairy. Each step showed her grace and beauty. She was dignified, calm, and virtuous, but her physique was truly alluring and her legs slender and long, enough to reach the waist of someone of the same height. The longer a female's legs, the more alluring the physique. The ratio of her body was absolutely perfect, such that simply her walking stimulated endless daydreaming. She had a slim and willowy waist, yet her buttocks jutted out, revealing an amazing curve and emitting a luscious bearing. Her breasts weren't extremely large, but could fill an entire hand, and her pink neck was like jade, elegant like a swan's. Her dark hair was like waterfall, tied up by a white silk ribbon. She had no adornments on her entire body, yet it made people feel that this was the most perfect decision, since no matter what adornments were worn on her body, it would only make her appear tacky. Ling Han was astonished. As expected, this girl didn't need to reveal her looks at all to make people feel that she was like a fairy from the heavens, the most beautiful in all of time. The only other woman that ever made him feel this way was Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden. However, he had seen Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden's appearance, and it certainly fitted her perfect physique. From appearance alone, Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden was definitely the most beautiful woman in the world, so beautiful that it felt like she shouldn't have appeared in the mortal world. But, AI! Ling Han sighed. That woman had to be so rude, coming over from time to time and taking random things. Reasoning with her would result in her threatening gaze, and his 4 disciples were beaten up terribly one after another. Speaking of reverence, Ling Han could pat his chest and say that his 4 disciples were definitely more obedient toward Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden than him. You say no, but your eyes are pretty honest. Now you know that Fairy Zhu is unmatched in her generation, right? Gong Lishan's voice sounded beside Ling Han's ear and awakened him from his reminiscence. Ling Han simply smiled and didn't try to explain. He still thought that if his abilities surpassed Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden's, then marrying a wife like her wouldn't be too bad, it'd be pleasant to the eyes. However, strength was a necessary safeguard, or else she'd suppress him, and maybe at night, he'd be the one lying on the bottom. Once Zhu Xuan Er arrived, she immediately became the center of attention. It was like she was born a goddess, and everyone else would pale before her. Her graceful bearing was too alluring, such that others couldn't even be envious. No matter male or female, they all looked at her with a fanatical gaze as if they would all be willing to plunge into raging fire and boiling water after one word of command from her. Ling Han was shocked on the inside. They were too fanatical, who would definitely not do such a thing. Xuan Er is very happy to be able to see all of you young prodigies. A toast to everyone. Zhu Xuan Er held up her wine bowl. Instantly, people revealed expressions of being overwhelmed by flattery and honor, hurriedly holding up their wine bowls as well. As Zhu Xuan Er lifted up the edge of her white gauze, revealing a snow-white chin and dark red lips, people were as if they'd been drugged. Some spurted blood from their nose, and some even fainted from excitement. Everyone drank the wine with one gulp. Having received a toast from Zhu Xuan Er, they felt that this life was completely worth it even if they died. Ling Han felt a slight undulation within. Although he hadn't seen Zhu Xuan Er's complete appearance, just from looking at her chin and her small lips, a beautiful image could be outlined inside people's minds from those exceedingly beautiful proportions. It was just the tip of the iceberg, yet Ling Han was certain that Zhu Xuan Er's beauty was far beyond Liu Yutong and the other girls, even qualifying to compare against Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden. However, it was impossible to sway Ling Han. It couldn't be helped. He saw Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden almost every day. She did things that made him very gloomy, so he couldn't like her even if he wanted to. Was such a preventive measure, so what if Zhu Xuan Er was the second Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden? After Zhu Xuan Er proposed a toast, she lowered the white gauze, instantly making everyone feel an intense reluctance. They felt depressed, as if they'd been gouged and had lost the thing they loved the most. She opened her mouth and said, "Xuan Er wants to buy a medicinal ingredient." If no one has it, then news on the medicinal ingredient will do as well. Xuan Er will repay you greatly. Fairy Zhu, speak as you will. Yes, to be able to serve Fairy Zhu, that's our honor. Through raging fire and boiling waters, 10,000 deaths won't stop us. Everyone shouted one after another, even a few girls looked fanatical. There was no emotion on Zhu Xuan Er's delicate face. She said, "The ingredient Xuan Er wants is a 7th-tier medicinal grass called Crimson Red Chilling Ice Grass." Crimson Red Chilling Ice Grass? What's that? Never heard of it. Many people immediately shook their heads, but Ling Han was momentarily startled, because Crimson Red Chilling Ice Grass was one of the 2 main ingredients he needed. He never would have thought he'd come into conflict with Zhu Xuan Er. If the 2 were to compete, it could be imagined that countless of people would definitely resent him. Whatever, so what if she was exceptionally beautiful? She couldn't even compare to a single hair on this master. Fairy Zhu, I know where the Crimson Red Chilling Ice Grass is. A youngster stood up very excitedly. Without pressing, the youngster spilled it all out. 3 months ago, when I just left the Dark Demon Forest, I soon heard someone speak of the Crimson Red Chilling Ice Grass, which should be in the depths of the forest. Hiss! Everyone gasped in astonishment. The Dark Demon Forest was one of the more notorious vicious places with flower-blossom-tier beasts in its depths. Normally, no one dared to enter the depths. Fairy Zhu, the Dark Demon Forest is too dangerous. It would bet better to go in 2 years. Nonsense, Fairy Zhu needs Crimson Red Chilling Ice Grass to save someone. Can she wait for 2 years? So you want Fairy Zhu to risk entering the Dark Demon Forest? She'll lose her life. Indeed, in 2 more years, maybe Fairy Zhu can advance into the Flower Blossom tier. She won't have to be afraid by then. Ling Han was moved. The Dark Demon Forest actually had the Crimson Red Chilling Ice Grass. He was ordered to harvest 7 stalks of the fiery sun grass and had no intention of doing so, but by the looks of it now, it seemed like fate was driving him there, mysterious and inexorable. Looks like he'd have to go to the Dark Demon Forest. Zhu Xuan Er was somewhat worried at first that it would bring trouble when the person spoke openly about the location of the Crimson Red Chilling Ice Grass. Thinking again, how many people dared to enter the Dark Demon Forest anyways? She thanked that person and promised that if they'd encountered a trouble, they'd be very welcome to go to the Half Moon sect to find her. Since she was in a rush to find the Crimson Red Chilling Ice Grass, she soon said goodbye and left. Once she left, the atmosphere instantly dropped drastically, and people no longer had the mood to stay. Not to mention, quite a few people already traded for the treasure they desired. Soon, they started bidding farewell one after another. Ling Han was very satisfied with this trip. He not only obtained Gold Silk Thousand Spark Fruit, but also obtained news on Crimson Red Chilling Ice Grass. He returned to refine Gold Silk Thousand Spark Fruit. Chapter 380 Bone Forming Pill. Chapter 380 Bone Forming Pill. Reverie _ It was inappropriate to always live at an inn. Since Ling Han had opened 2 stores in Jiyang City to seize endless streams of origin crystals, Ling Han had already set out to purchase a house. However, in the short amount of time, he hadn't found a suitable one. Liu Yutong and Li Xichan were very picky with the quality of the residence, but if it were up to Ling Han, as long as the place was clean, wasn't living anywhere all the same? So, they still stayed temporarily at the inn. After returning to the inn, Ling Han immediately flashed into the Black Tower. Improving cultivation obviously came first. He took in the Gold Silk Thousand Spark Fruit and burst 100 pieces of origin crystal in passing. Wang, instantly inexhaustible origin power wrapped around him and continuous streams of power poured into his body, as if kneading. Hong, the spirit fruit's medicinal effect was exhibited. Ling Han used his body as a furnace to fuse the medicinal effects, and cooperating with the power origin crystals provided, his cultivation immediately began to skyrocket. 2 spiritual oceans, one yin and one yang, spinning in opposite directions, began to expand under the stacked effects of medicinal and origin power. It would be fast if placed on anyone else, but Ling Han's spiritual oceans were far larger than that of normal spiritual ocean tier warriors, so it appeared extremely slow. Ling Han estimated that this fruit could at most increase his cultivation by one small tier, and this was due to the large amount of origin power that he could expend. Otherwise, if it aided him in advancing half a small tier, that would already be considered good. Why were his spiritual oceans overly large, and he even had two, one yin and one yang? Two spiritual oceans kept moving against each other like a millstone, constantly polishing his origin power. The result of this was the complete removal of flaws in his origin power, making it more concentrated. People usually started solidifying their cultivation after they reached the peak stage of the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, but Ling Han carried it out constantly, so his tier was extremely stable. However, this meant that his advancement was very slow. Even if he was slow, he was still faster than normal people by 10 times. After all, he was the Grand Master of Alchemy and didn't lack origin crystals. After a day and a night, Ling Han completely refined and absorbed the medicinal power of the spirit fruit, and his cultivation reached the 5th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, one step closer to the 9th layer. He circled around inside the Black Tower and pulled out several stalks of spirit grass, deciding to refine a few high-tier medicinal pills for auction. The profits from the tavern and the medicine store were small but steady, but if he really wanted to get rich overnight, then he could only refine high-tier medicinal pills for auction. However, Spirit Treasure's Pavilion didn't hold auctions every day, so Ling Han only decided to refine pills a few days after he'd arrived. Spirit Treasure's Pavilion's next large-scale auction was in 10 days. Ling Han refined a low-level earth-grade medicinal pill, bone-forming pill. This medicinal pill was for the flower blossom tier cultivators. After one took the bone-forming pill, one's bones would be reconstructed, advancing towards a tougher state. This was very practical, because when two flower blossom tier warriors attacked each other, even if one did not lose out on origin power, their bones could break due to lack of durability. When one's bones were shattered, it affected one's strength, so how embarrassing would that be? So the tougher one refined one's physique, then the higher one could reach in the future. This was the same thing as compacting one's cultivation, but from a different approach. Only those in the flower blossom tier could take bone-forming pill because they surpassed the mortal level and blossomed the heavenly flower on their spiritual pedestal, giving them an endless stream of vitality. For anyone else, it would be courting death. Ling Han smiled satisfyingly. For this bone-forming pill, he didn't plan on accepting 1-star origin crystals, but 2 stars or 3 stars. She would soon advance into the spiritual pedestal tier, and the effect of 1-star origin crystals would drop substantially. The profits from the tavern and the medicine store were enough to provide Lu Yutong and the others with resources to cultivate. Ling Han headed to the Spirit Treasure's Pavilion. After he took out bone-forming pill, it immediately stirred the higher-ups of the Spirit Treasure's Pavilion. Such a medicinal pill was too high in grade, and for caution's sake, they especially invited a Earth-grade alchemy master for appraisal. Coincidentally, the alchemist was surnamed Lu, and named Ji Tonghe just so happened to be Lu Qiyuan's grandfather. This Earth-grade alchemist was already 70 years old, and his cultivation was still at the spiritual pedestal tier, unable to surpass the mortal limit. Otherwise, for a 300-year lifespan, 70 years old was the prime of one's life. There was still hope. He was an Earth-grade alchemist after all. The resources in his grasp were extremely shocking, and perhaps he could refine some sort of spirit pill that would support him in charging into the flower blossom tier. Seeing the bone-forming pill, the old man was very shocked. This was a low-level Earth-grade medicinal pill which was something he could refine, but after opening the pill bottle, the old man was suddenly startled, revealing an extremely excited look and staying silent for a long while. "Master Lu!" a person from the Spirit Treasure's Pavilion called out lightly. Lu Jitong was finally woken up and said, "The quality of this bottle of bone-forming pill is too high, making this old man involuntarily sucked into a reverie." "How high?" the person from the Spirit Treasure's Pavilion asked. Since bone-forming pill was too important, the one put in charge was a flower blossom tier elite. However, in front of an Earth-grade alchemist, he appeared quite modest. This flower blossom tier elite was called Li Fei Qin. 13 stars, even 14 stars in quality. Lu Jitong pondered, making an evaluation. Li Fei Qin instantly gasped in astonishment. His eyes burned with desire. He was a flower blossom tier warrior, so he obviously needed bone-forming pills. The quality of 13 stars or even 14 stars gave him an urge to seize it. Young man, this medicinal is refined by an elder from your sect? Lu Jitong looked at Ling Han. He definitely had to get acquainted with the alchemist who made it. In corroborating with each other, he might be able to improve upon his techniques. If it were him, the refined bone-forming pill would be at most 6 stars in quality. Ling Han cracked a smile and said, "If I said I was the one who refined it, would you guys believe it?" Ha ha! Lu Jitong and Li Fei Qin laughed at the same time. This was a colossal joke. A 17-year-old, a low-level Earth-grade medicinal pill, and 13 stars in quality were things that couldn't be placed together. Ling Han laughed as well, and then took out a golden badge along with the identification crystal. Upon activating it, information on his identity was displayed. Lu Jiatong and Li Fei Qing's laughter stopped abruptly. "You're that Ling Han!" Lu Jitong cried out. Several months ago, when Ling Han was authenticated as an Earth-grade alchemist, the news spread to North Pill Pavilion. There was only one word in their minds: impossible. A 17-year-old youngster actually refined an Earth-grade medicinal pill? What a bad joke. However, there were 3 Earth-grade alchemists who jointly guaranteed, and so they could only believe it even if there were still suspicions. They never would have thought that the youngest Earth-grade alchemist in history would actually appear. Ling Han nodded and said, "I'm that Ling Han." Lu Jitong had no more doubts. There were only so many Earth-grade alchemists in the North region. He could count these people with his fingers alone. And to refine a 13 stars bone-forming pill, only a high-level Earth-grade alchemist could do it. These people were even rarer, countable with a single palm, and each one of them was worshipped in the North Pill Pavilion as they were diligently attempting to reach the heaven grade. Who would be so bored as to refine bone-forming pill? Moreover, these 3 bone-forming pills were very fresh, still carrying the smell like they were fresh out of the furnace. Evidently, it couldn't be a work of a high-level Earth-grade alchemy master in their early years. Chapter 381 Causing a Disturbance Again. Chapter 381 Causing a Disturbance Again. Reverie _ I've long heard of Master Ling's name, and seeing you today, there's no doubt of your great reputation. This old man is impressed. Lu Jitong immediately cupped his hands, appearing very polite. Although they were both low-level Earth-grade alchemists, didn't being able to refine a 13 stars bone-forming pill mean that Ling Han's alchemy ability was far more than just low-level Earth-grade? He was probably limited by cultivation, and the ultimate power of his flame couldn't increase further, so he could only stop at this level. Such an alchemy genius would definitely become a grandmaster in the future. Master Ling! Li Fei Qin cupped his hands in salutation. His martial arts tier completely crushed Ling Han's and Lu Jitong's, but the two's achievements in alchemy were shocking, enough to be on equal footing with him, and even taking a slight edge. Who made the standing of alchemists beyond the norm? Ling Han laughed and said, "Please don't reveal information about me being here." He didn't want to be eyed by the Thousand Corpse sect. It was unknown how long this sect existed underground, and its strength could be extremely terrifying. Of course. Lu Jitong and Li Fei Qing both nodded, asking nothing. Since Ling Han's identity was certain and the quality of the bone-forming pill was approved by Lu Jitong, the Spirit Treasures Pavilion naturally had no more doubts, placing the 3 bone-forming pills as the highlight in the next auction. "Master Ling, can we sit down sometime and discuss alchemy?" Lu Jitong said. "Sure." Ling Han nodded. "I opened a tavern, let's just head over there." He revealed his identity, so he had the intention of becoming acquainted with Lu Jitong. "It's up to Master Ling." Lu Jitong hurriedly nodded. For him, where he ate obviously didn't matter. The point was to discuss alchemy with Ling Han. Ling Han could refine a 13 stars bone-forming pill, so he naturally far surpassed him in alchemy techniques. If he didn't take advantage of the opportunity to ask for advice, then he would be truly stupid. The two came to forget not. Ling Han had the kitchen staff prepare food, slaughtering a second-tier beast, a mysterious fragrant deer that grew up from eating 100-year-old ginseng. Simply boiling thoroughly with water, the delicious taste of it could make people's teeth fall. As expected, after Lu Jitong had a taste, he cared no longer for his old face and couldn't stop with his chopsticks, forgetting to ask Ling Han for advice on alchemy. Knowing that Ling Han came, Lu Yutong and the others came over. Ling Han introduced them one by one. Everyone sat down and ate. Hu Niu's enormous appetite naturally shocked Lu Jitong. The old man even felt an impending crisis, fearing that he wouldn't beat Hu Niu in snatching the food. After they were half full, Lu Jitong finally remembered the proper business, hurriedly consulting Ling Han on alchemy techniques. Ling Han spoke casually. Every word from the Grand Master of Alchemy was naturally like a gem. Very soon, Lu Jitong forgot his identity, and involuntarily stood up respectfully by Ling Han's side like an alchemy boy in his teens, listening to the teachings of his respected teacher. In Lu Jitong's eyes, Ling Han's status was raised infinitely, even surpassing the 5 high-level Earth-grade alchemists a heaven-grade master. He has heard those 5 express their views on alchemy, but compared to Ling Han, none of them understood it as deeply. The difference was almost like heaven and earth. Could this one be the reincarnation of the Grand Master of Alchemy? Or else how did a mere 17-year-old have such a shocking understanding on alchemy? Don't say, he actually guessed right. Pung 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 pung. At this moment, clamor came from below, making Ling Han stop. Lu Jitong was deeply absorbed, as if a brand new door was slowly opening up to him that would allow him to become a middle-level alchemy master. Limited by cultivation, he couldn't refine medium-level medicinal pill at the moment, but as long as he advanced into the flower blossom tier, everything would come easily. That was just like Ling Han, who had the martial arts comprehension of the heaven tier in the previous life, and now only needed to accumulate cultivation. Once he had enough cultivation, he would smoothly advance. He was instantly infuriated and his killing intent spread. He wished he could immediately tear the person who interrupted Master Ling into 10,000 pieces. "I'll have a look," Zhu Wujiu said promptly, turning to leave the room. Zhu Wujiu arrived at the bottom floor. 2 youngsters were standing in the lobby. They brought a dozen underlings who were chasing out the customers. Every one of them looked malicious, and even the store staff didn't dare step forward to stop. Zhu Wujiu only recognized one of the 2 youngsters, Lang Jun Kai. If Ling Han were to come, he would recognize the other person, Lu Qiyuan, who was Lang Jun Kai's master. Lang Jun Kai was obviously not resigned. He had planned on taking over. Forget not, which was equivalent to possessing a gold mountain. He never thought that not only would he not get the gold mountain, but he also would be extorted for 4,000 origin crystals. He knew Ling Han had Gong Leian as support, and couldn't resist him, so he found Lu Qiyuan. With a little instigation, Lu Qiyuan was moved. A gold mountain, who wouldn't want to take over it? Lang Jun Kai was afraid of Gong Leian, but was he afraid? Of course not. Then go for it. This time, he fetched a spiritual pedestal tier elite that was worshipped in the family. With such an elite's backing, he wouldn't be afraid of forcibly making Ling Han lower his head. "Go, get your boss out here to greet young Master Lu," Lang Jun Kai said coldly, feeling extremely annoyed inside. This gold mountain was his, should have been his, but Lu Qiyuan already made a move, so he could only get the leftover soup, and there was definitely no share for him with the beauties. If he could even get one portion of the profit, it would be something worth thanking the heavens for. Lu Qiyuan was not a generous person, and besides, Lang Jun Kai expended no effort on this matter. Zhu Wujiu walked down the stairs and said, "You guys are not welcome here, get lost." "Haha, since when did mere gushing spring tier warriors dare to be so arrogant?" Lang Jun Kai sneered. "Let me tell you, it's useless no matter who comes here today, because young Master Lu is here," he said, full of confidence. In the entire extreme Yang city, there were only so many spoiled second generations that could not give face to Lu Qiyuan, and Ling Han wasn't one of them. Unless Le Gongtian was willing to protect Ling Han at all costs, he wouldn't be able to stop Lu Qiyuan either. After all, Gong Letian couldn't possibly always stay at Forget-Not, right? Zhu Wujiu was elated. He knew the identity of Lu Jitong, who was Lu Qiyuan's grandfather and Lu family's pillar. However, old man Lu was standing quietly by Ling Han's side right now, obedient like Ling Han's alchemy apprentice. The more unbridled Lu Qiyuan was now, the more tragically he would be crying later. He had no intention of warning them and said slowly, "Young Master Lu? Hee, the extreme Yang city's hidden talent. It's better to be a bit more modest. You really make people laugh their heads off. A mere gushing spring-tier cultivator dares to lecture this young master? Take him down!" Lu Qiyuan gave a stern look and a spiritual ocean-tier martial artist immediately jumped out, trying to grasp Zhu Wujiu. This was naturally very easy, and Zhu Wujiu immediately fell into the opponent's hands. "Slap him!" Lu Qiyuan said coldly. Pa. That spiritual ocean-tier warrior immediately started lashing at Zhu Wujiu's face. Zhu Wujiu simply clenched his teeth and didn't beg for mercy, nor did he call for help. He was set on getting Lu Qiyuan in trouble because Lu Qiyuan definitely wouldn't be heavily reprimanded from creating a disturbance. However, if he were to get beaten up terribly, would Lu Jiaitong punish Lu Qiyuan lightly? He always felt ashamed and uneasy, not being able to relieve Ling Han's worries and troubles. So when he encountered things like this, he would rather suffer and get Lu Qiyuan in trouble. Chapter 382 Rammed into a Wall. Chapter 382 Rammed into a Wall. Reverie _ A mere gushing spring-tier warrior dares to be impudent in front of this young master? Humph, watch how this young master will take care of you! Lu Qiyuan was extremely angry. Before Ling Han was rude to him, and now Ling Han's subordinates also dared to be rude to him, making him beyond furious. When did the young master of the Lu family have so little face? Zhu Wujiu laughed loudly and said, "Lu Qiyuan, don't you regret it?" "Regret? Ha, damn brat, you dare to threaten this young master?" Lu Qiyuan laughed out of anger and looked towards Lang Junkai. Lang Junkai sneered and said, "The owner's mad, so is the slave. It seems they have no clue of young Master Lu's identity." He looked towards Zhu Wujiu and said, "Listen, young Master Lu's grandfather is an earth-grade alchemist, Master Lu. Brat, do you know what an earth-grade alchemist represents? Fiercer than flower-blossom-tier elites, even mighty spiritual infant-tier cultivators need to be courteous to him. Kneel down and yell Ling Han is a bastard, and this young master will forgive you." Lu Qiyuan laughed. He came today to embarrass Ling Han to the point where Ling Han would hand over the tavern submissively. "All right." Zhu Wujiu agreed unreservedly. Lu Qiyuan and Lang Junkai were both startled. How come he submitted so quickly? Wasn't this guy quite haughty earlier? Could it be that he was scared when he finally knew Lu Qiyuan's identity? "Then start," Lu Qiyuan said. He was puzzled, but it was enough as long as he could embarrass Ling Han. Being betrayed by a subordinate had to feel quite awful, right? Zhu Wujiu took a deep breath, about to yell. "Kneel!" Lang Junkai hurriedly said, about to charge forward and knock Zhu Wujiu down. "Forget it." Lu Qiyuan blocked with his hand. "Lu Qiyuan is a bastard! Lu Qiyuan is a bastard! Lu Qiyuan is a bastard!" Zhu Wujiu shouted, his voice rumbling and echoing ceaselessly. "SHT! You want to die?" Lu Qiyuan and Lang Junkai glared at the same time, looking very furious. This brat dared to trick them? "You're dead! Dead for sure!" Lang Junkai bellowed. "Kill him!" These subordinates hesitated. It didn't matter when they killed in self-defense, but killing on one's own accord was another matter. The extreme Yang city had its own rules, and killing people in public was a serious crime which no one would rashly violate. Therefore, no matter how much they beat Zhu Wujiu, it didn't matter, but killing, they couldn't do so in front of so many people. "Take him back," Lu Qiyuan said coldly. Killing him in the Lu family, who would dare to demand his release? Even if they came, he only needed to say perfunctorily, He's already been released, who knows where he's gone to? And that would do. Lang Jun Kai immediately understood and signaled with his eyes to the subordinate on the side as he said, "Take him! Who dares to use force?" A voice seething with anger called out, sounding very old. "Which bastard is it now?" Lang Jun Kai said impatiently. One person after another, was there no end? "Gee, grandfather!" Lu Qiuan said with a quiver, appearing extremely nervous. Lang Jun Kai instantly felt a chill from his head all the way to his feet. Grandfather? Lu Qiuan only had one grandfather, and that was the alchemist Lu Jitong, the low-level earth-grade alchemist. He actually called him a bastard. For that alone, he could be executed 100 times. Insulting an earth-grade alchemist. Pa, his legs immediately went soft. Kneeling down, he said, "This lowly one didn't insult the master intentionally. Please forgive me, Master Lu." Lu Jitong didn't even glance at Lang Jun Kai and stared only at his grandson, revealing a both disappointed and furious expression. He had just been listening respectfully to Ling Han instruct on alchemy but was interrupted midway, which infuriated him. However, he never would have thought that the one causing trouble was his grandson, making him feel exceedingly ashamed. The kindness of guidance had with it the friendship of being half a teacher, yet his grandson came Ling Han's place to make a show of force, making him so angry and ashamed that he wanted to die. He always thought his grandson was respectful, but now he knew that it was all just appearances for him to see. "Foul beast!" His entire body trembled as he pointed at Lu Qiuan, taking a sudden large stride forward, and pa, he slapped forcefully 4 consecutive times, making Lu Qiuan's 2 cheeks bulge greatly. Lu Qiuan felt wronged and said, "Grandfather, why did you hit me?" "Hit you? This old man will beat you to death," Lu Jitong said coldly, raising his right hand up high again. "Grandfather!" Lu Qiuan hurriedly threw himself to Lu Jitong's feet, tears and snot flowing out. He knew Lu Jitong's personality. It definitely wasn't a joke when Lu Jitong said he was going to kill someone. "I'm your only grandson, Lu family's only son for generations, and if I die, Lu family will have no future generations." Lang Jun Kai almost fainted. Even Lu Qiuan was going to be beaten to death, so what would be his end? Lu Jitong raised his hand high up, but couldn't smack downwards all this time. Lu Qiuan was certainly Lu family's only son. "Jitong, forget it." Ling Han walked down from the floor above. "You!" Seeing this, Lu Qiuan wanted to climb up from the ground. "Pa!" Lu Jitong immediately gave him a slap and scolded. "You! What you call him master?" "And master?" Lu Qiuan's eyeballs almost jutted out. This was only a 17 to 18-year-old youngster who was much younger than him. He was actually some master? Lu Jitong threw another slap, startling him once again. He wasn't stupid. Could he not have realized by now? "Master!" he hurriedly called out obediently. Ling Han paid no attention, looking at Zhu Wujiu. He said, "Wujiu, who did it?" "Him and him." Zhu Wujiu immediately pointed at Lu Qiuan and Lang Jun Kai. Ling Han nodded and said, "Jitong, your grandson is a bit arrogant." Embarrassed, Lu Jiatong nodded, and immediately slapped Lu Qiuan again without holding back, truly like a beating to death. Lu Jiyuan wanted to escape, but someone in the spiritual ocean tier couldn't possibly be a spiritual pedestal tier cultivator's opponent, so he could only keep getting beat. When Lu Qiuan was almost beaten to death, Ling Han intervened and blocked Lu Jitong. He said, "No need for death penalty." "Thank you, master," Lu Jiatong hurriedly said, joy filling his face. With Ling Han's talent, Ling Han would definitely become a heaven-grade alchemist. If Ling Han were to really bear a grudge, then the whole family would suffer. Now Ling Han clearly stopped pursuing the matter, so Lu Jitong was naturally relieved. Lang Jun Kai was covered with a cold sweat like rain. Lu Qiuan was beaten half to death. What about him? Ling Han's gaze moved over, as if looking at a dead man. Young Master Ling, forgive me once! Forgive me once! Lang Jun Kai said quaveringly. He now knew why Lu Yutong, Zhu Wujiu, and the others had such confidence not because they were country bumpkins, arrogant and ignorant, but because their trump card was shockingly powerful. "Master Ling, leave this child up to me," Lu Jitong said, face full of killing intent. He had to give Ling Han some justice, didn't he? He obviously was unwilling to kill his grandson, so he could only find the other culprit. Chapter 383 Aid the Fight. Chapter 383 Aid the Fight. Reverie _ Don't assume that Lu Jitong was a benign person. On the contrary, to be able to sit in his position, how could he be a person faint of heart? Not only did he execute Lang Junkai, the old man also gave the Lang family an empty criminal charge, killing all their elites while the leftover women, children, and old were exiled from the extreme Yang city. He was truly vicious and merciless, almost destroying the Lang family. The old man certainly had reason to be enraged. Lu Qiyuan originally wouldn't have come into conflict with Ling Han, and it was completely instigated by Lang Junkai. If he weren't there that day, then what end would Lu Qiyuan have met? This was almost equivalent to hatred of killing his grandson, so the old man naturally didn't hold back when he acted. With one day's effort, the Lang family vanished completely from the extreme Yang city, demonstrating the amazing capacity of an Earth-grade alchemist. Ling Han was also an Earth-grade alchemist, which meant that if he revealed his identity, he could receive the same standing and power as Lu Jitong. However, the Thousand Corpse sect was a hidden threat and Ling Han didn't want to reveal his identity so quickly, so he circled around, pulling in Lu Jitong. An Earth-grade alchemist as a supporter for the tavern and medicine store meant he didn't need to have any future worries. He was heading to the Dark Demon Forest next. Lu Yutong and the others naturally had to help him manage the store with an Earth-grade alchemist as support. He was naturally relieved. Otherwise, why would he intentionally bring Lu Jitong under his control? Ling Han made some arrangements. He didn't plan on bringing anyone on the trip to the Dark Demon Forest, but when Hunyo found out, she immediately threw a fit, following him no matter what. Thinking of the little girl's speed, Ling Han knew he couldn't get rid of her, so he nodded in agreement. However, before he even left, he received an invitation to a banquet from the Spirit Treasures Pavilion. Ling Han thought it was a matter concerning the auctioning of the bone-forming pill, which involved his profits, so there naturally wasn't much to consider. Readily agreed. Hunyo was most mischievous, following him to the banquet no matter what. Arriving at the Spirit Treasures Pavilion, he and Hunyo were brought to an elegant private courtyard. There was a square table set in the atrium of the courtyard, with two girls already seated there. One of them was in all white, and even had white gauze covering her face. Her skin was like snow. It was indistinguishable as to whether it was the white clothes or her skin. Her hair was like clouds, dangling like a waterfall. Zhu Xuan Er. Ling Han was slightly startled. Did he guess wrong and this banquet wasn't for the bone-forming pill? Another girl was roughly 21 or 22 years old. Clad in a long skirt, her body was fiery with stunning curves. Her complexion was extremely beautiful, her flaming red lips filled with seductive air. Seeing Ling Han walk over holding Hunyo's hand, the red-clothed girl stood up abruptly and laughed. "Young Master Ling, please!" Zhu Xuan Er stood up as well, but didn't speak, simply rising half out of her seat to greet Ling Han. "Young Master Ling, this young lady is surnamed Yin and named Lan." The red-clothed beauty introduced herself. "This one is Lady Zhu Xuan Er. Sister Zhu, this here is Ling Han, young Master Ling, but he has another more shocking identity, an Earth-grade alchemist." And Zhu Xuan Er was really shocked. Ling Han looked not even 20 years old. Which Earth-grade alchemist wasn't an old man or old lady in the 50s or 60s? Hunyo looked at Zhu Xuan Er for a while and immediately revealed an expression as if guarding her food, climbing onto Ling Han's neck and saying, "Ling Han is Nio's." She expressed her sovereignty towards Zhu Xuan Er and completely ignored Yin Lan, clearly thinking that this girl wouldn't be a threat to her. Zhu Xuan Er had always been easygoing. Whether people liked her or disliked her, she wouldn't take it to heart. However, a 5 to 6-year-old little girl looked full of jealousy and challenged her, making her feel somewhat awkward. "Ha ha! Yin Lan laughed exaggeratingly, wantonly and with exceeding charm. She was naturally charming and didn't need to make a display of it. Each and every move of hers was filled with charm. After she cast an enchanting glance at Ling Han, she said, "Sister Zhu, you've been regarded as a rival." Zhu Xuan Er looked at Hu Niu again, revealing astounded expression, because she found that she couldn't see through Hu Niu at all. However, thinking again, a 5 to 6-year-old little girl wouldn't have awakened a spirit base, so she naturally had no cultivation. She couldn't see through Hu Niu, because Hu Niu wasn't a martial artist at all. Thinking so, she felt at ease. Ling Han sat down, while Hu Niu knelt on his lap, looking at Zhu Xuan Er provocatively. The little girl truly saw Zhu Xuan Er as a rival. She had never been this serious in front of Liu Yutong and Li Xichan. "Lady Yin, why did you invite me here?" Ling Han said. "First drink and eat, we can talk over the meal." Yin Hong smiled. "Can young Master Ling still feel bored with two beauties like us as company?" Ling Han held the wine bowl and simply smiled slightly, unmoved by her exceeding charm, and said, "What is Lady Yin's position at the Spirit Treasures Pavilion?" She invited him in Spirit Treasures Pavilion's name. "My father is Yin Shang, the Pavilion Master of North Region's Spirit Treasures Pavilion," Yin Hong said casually. This was very surprising. The Spirit Treasures Pavilion and the Alchemist Society were leviathans in the vast lands. Even if it was just a sub-branch in the North region, the power they grasped was still surprising, not inferior to the sect masters of sect like the Winter Moon sect. He never would have thought that Yin Shang's daughter was actually so young. When did the old man have this daughter? Yin Hong went on. "I have a favor to ask of young Master Ling." Ling Han couldn't help but laugh and said, "Lady Yin's the young mistress of the headquarters of North Region's Spirit Treasures Pavilion. Is there something that you can't do and need my help with?" Yin Hong sighed faintly and said, "Every 5 years, the Spirit Treasures Pavilion will gather at the main branch and have a contest in alchemy, formations, and martial arts. However, only those under 30 years old can attend. The purpose is to select those who are worth investing in, and rate the managers of the 4 large sub-branches." Hearing her words, Ling Han already guessed her intentions, but he didn't interject, simply listening quietly. "The North Region's sub-branch has continued to be the last in the past 100 to 1,000 years." Yin Hong knitted her willowy brows, appearing extremely displeased. "However, I truly don't think that there are no prodigies in the North Region. So, I plan on inviting young Master Ling as a welcome guest of the headquarters in the North Region to battle for us, traveling with me to the Middle State at the end of next year." Traveling to the Middle State? Ling Han had an epiphany. He certainly had the thought of going to the Middle State, but he had to take care of a few things: cure his father's spirit base, save his mother, and kill Ao Feng. After that, he could feel at ease and head off to Middle State. After all, the secret Zhi Xuan buried was in the Middle State. He looked at Zhu Xuan Er and said, "I am the alchemy representative and Lady Zhu is for martial arts. Then where's the formation representative?" "It's me." Yin Hong patted her chest, instantly causing a shocking ripple. Chapter 384 Provisos. Chapter 384 Provisos. Reverie _ Ling Han was astounded and said, "Lady Yin is skilled in formations?" He dabbled in formations in his previous life and learned mainly to break through all sorts of historic sites. Focused on unraveling formations, his formation-setting abilities weren't strong. However, it was said that in the ancient times, formations were a large branch that was on par with martial arts and alchemy. Several millennia ago, the status of formation masters was no lower than alchemy masters. A break-off in alchemy occurred millennia ago, but alchemy was almost completely destroyed in Ling Han's previous life. He never would have thought he would witness a person cultivating formations, which made Ling Han quite shocked. "Haha, you look down on me? Thinking that all I know is to give charming winks?" Yin Hong said, carefree and not at all ashamed. This was simply her personality. Her charming face with her natural seductiveness were quite impressive, but it couldn't be helped. She had a manly personality, speaking whatever she thought and knowing not what restraint was. Ling Han laughed loudly and said, Lady Ian is very interesting. I propose you a toast. Hee, I don't get drunk in 1,000 bowls. If young Master Ling wants to get me drunk and plot some bad things, then you'll only be disappointed. Yin Hong gladly drank the bowl of wine in a gulp, surprisingly bold. Ling Han couldn't help but feel a bit ill at ease. This woman was too straightforward. Did she not fear of making other people feel awkward? Young Master Ling is already a low-level Earth-grade alchemist at such a young age. No one can compare even in the middle state. So, we can firmly take down the 30 points in alchemy. Sister Zhu's strength can't count as the finest in the middle state, but fortunately, we still have half a year's time, enough for Sister Zhu to improve by several layers. I will fully assist her, making Sister Zhu reach at least the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. Of course, if she can break through to the flower blossom tier, all the better. Then we would at least get 30 points out of the 40 in martial arts. Yin Hong paused, then went on. I'm a formation genius. The 30 points in this stage, taking 25 points definitely won't be hard. So the total points out of the 3 stages can reach above 85. The first place last time was only 85 points, so we have high hopes of taking first, she said, filled with confidence. Ling Han shrugged and said, Lady Yin, it's all your own wishful thinking. I don't recall accepting? Being able to fight alongside a woman of unmatched beauty like Sister Zhu, is young master still unwilling? Yin Hong said, pretending to be surprised. Ling Han simply laughed, and said no more. Sly little fox. Yin Hong criticized as she spread her hands out, asking, All right, put forward whatever requests do you have. We of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion have money and all sorts of treasures. As long as it doesn't exceed our bottom line, I am in the position to give it to you. Ling Han waved his hands dismissively and said, No need to gift it. I want a spirit grass, and it's best if you can get it by the end of the year. Origin crystals are not a problem. I can pay accordingly. Yin Hong instantly clapped her hands and said with a smile, As expected of an Earth-grade alchemist, rich and imposing, not even taking advantage of me given such a great chance. Zhu Xuan Er's tolerance was a bit surprising. She remained unmoved, no matter how Yin Hong teased her. As if a true fairy from the heaven, how could she be moved by mortal matters? Yin Han went on. What spirit grass does young Master Ling need? 9-leaf black Ganoderma. Ling Han said. 7th tier spirit grass shouldn't be a problem for the Spirit Treasures Pavilion, right? Yin Hong's beautiful face twitched. She said exaggeratingly, Hey, that's a 7th tier spirit grass. Even spiritual infant tier warriors would be moved. Our strongest cultivators in the North region are only in the spiritual infant tier. You have the nerve to say that it shouldn't be a problem? Ling Han shrugged and said, Even if there is a problem, that's Lady Yin's problem. I've set forth my condition. As long as Lady Yin can bring me the 9-leaf black Ganoderma, I'll accept and attend the battle for the Spirit Treasures Pavilion. Besides, I can take a step back. The 9-leaf Ganoderma doesn't have to reach maturity. But if it's not mature enough, I want a living one. Yin Hong looked at Ling Han with a strange gaze. The insinuation behind his words was somewhat shocking. It didn't matter if the medicine wasn't mature enough as long as it was alive. Could Ling Han possibly have a way of fostering spirit grass that could speed up its growth? This thought flashed by, but Yin Hong immediately shook her head. There was no way. From 6th tier onwards, all spirit grass and trees were like martial artists, surpassing mortals, and absolutely couldn't be fostered in a normal medicinal garden. Keeping it alive was quite difficult, not to mention speeding up its growth. She pondered, then said, All right, leave this matter to me. But even if I can really get it, the value of a 7th tier spirit grass is extremely shocking. Hopefully young Master Ling would be prepared. Ling Han cracked a smile. No matter. At the worst, I'll just refine some more medicinal pills. Yin Hong suddenly became speechless. The best group of moneymakers in the world were alchemists, and one outstanding alchemist. The ones who had high pill-forming rate had terrifying money-making abilities. One batch of ingredients refined into medicinal pills was 10 times the profit, and they wouldn't have worry about not selling because of the large scale of martial artists. Since everyone's agreed, come, let's drink, Yin Hong said extremely boldly. Looking only at her appearance, one couldn't possibly think that such a charming lady was actually so manly in character. The four began to eat. Hu Niu immediately stuck her tongue. The things here were too unpalatable. She took out the dried meats that had already been prepared from her spatial ring and began munching on it. The smell spread and instantly attracted Yin Hong's gaze. Her saliva almost drooled out. Even Zhu Xuan Er couldn't help but swallow her saliva. In front of such delicacies, even fairies turned into mortals. Pretty little girl, give sister a piece, Yin Hong said unabashedly. Hu Niu was stingy, glaring vigilantly at Yin Hong. Food was her life. Ling Han laughed loudly and said, Niu, don't be stingy, give the two sisters a taste. Hearing Ling Han say so, Hu Niu reluctantly separated two small pieces and handed them over. Moreover, the piece that she gave to Zhu Xuan Er was clearly a whole lot smaller. It was clear just how unhappy she was to see Zhu Xuan Er. Yin Hong wouldn't be embarrassed. She immediately started to eat the dried meat. With a taste of it, she was enraptured, and her entire body began to tremble. The snacks for Hu Niu weren't made from normal meat, but from the beasts fostered inside the Black Tower. There were very little, even Ling Han didn't eat it often. The taste was not only fresh, but also greatly beneficial to martial artists. After all, these beasts ate 100-year-old ginseng and Ganoderma all day, and it would be weird if it weren't rich in nutrition. Young Master Ling, how do you sell these meats? Set a price, I'll even sell my body, Yin Hong said. Chapter 385 Formation Master 385 Formation Master Reverie _ Pooh, Ling Han instantly spurted out a mouthful of wine. This woman was so bold that it was a bit unbearable. Only a pervert like Gu Fenghua could match her. Hearing Yin Hong say such a thing, Zhu Xuan Er couldn't cover up her curiosity, and picked up that small piece of meat on the table. She lifted the white gauze slightly, revealing her exceedingly beautiful red lips, and opened her mouth slowly. Her pearly white teeth were as if exquisite sculptures, stunningly beautiful. She placed the meat in her mouth and lowered the white gauze, chewing slowly. It instantly made one feel ceaseless regret, hoping to see it one more time. She didn't act as exaggerated as Yin Hong, but her gaze revealed extraordinary splendor from shock. Such delicacy was once in a lifetime, making her feel the urge to have another taste no matter the cost. She was Zhu Xuan Er after all, and soon suppressed the urge and looked even-tempered once again. Rather than enjoyment, she still had a grave responsibility. Sister Zhu, you should just marry young Master Ling. Yin Hong's could help but speak teasingly. Look, young Master Ling is only 17 years old and is already a low-level Earth-grade alchemist. At this rate, he'll be a heaven-grade alchemist around 30 years old, and you can just find him to refine the pill. Besides, following him, there'll be such delicious food to eat, your entire life will be worth it. She laughed mischievously, looked flatteringly at Ling Han, and said, Young Master Ling, look, I got you a wife, why don't you give me some more of that dried meat? Those words instantly provoked two people, Zhu Xuan Er and Hu Niu. Not so much Zhu Xuan Er was an adult after with self-control, but her gaze became somewhat cold. Hu Niu had a hot temper. She immediately dove out from Ling Han's embrace, and Xiu, her small figure, flashed and appeared before Yin Hong, waving her claws toward Yin Hong's chest. Hiss! The two girls were completely shocked. Hu Niu was actually an elite? She was extremely strange. Even Ling Han, who possessed a shred of heaven-tier divine consciousness, could no longer see through her at all, let alone the two girls. A spiritual ocean-tier expert suddenly attacked, and Yin Hong was absolutely unguarded. Chilla, the clothes on her chest were instantly torn open. However, soon following, a white light flickered and formed a screen of light, blocking Hu Niu's little hands. Niu, stop! Ling Han hurriedly shouted. Hu Niu then flipped and landed back into Ling Han's embrace. Still in a bad mood, she scowled at Yin Hong. The white light on Yin Hong's chest dispersed, and because the clothes were torn, her snow-white skin could be seen indistinctly. However, what was surprising was that there were the vein-like lines on her skin, just like a tattoo. Formation marks! Ling Han had heaven-tier experience. His eyes immediately lit up, focusing his gaze on it. Formations were already waning and almost lost in his previous lifetime. Only coming across it when he visited historic sites, Ling Han only knew how to solve them, and the only formation he could set was a warning formation. However, in the ancient times, formation was lined up against martial arts and alchemy. Once formation masters attacked, they could trap tens and hundreds of martial artists of the same tier. The power of it was definitely there. He was very interested in formations, but placed all his energy on alchemy and had no time to delve into formations. Additionally, there were no formation masters he could ask for guidance, and no formation scrolls were left from the ancient times, so how could he learn it? Never would he have thought that he would really encounter a formation master. As expected of the blossoming of a prosperous martial arts age, not only were there freaks Rong Huan Xian, Yan Tian Zhao, Ma Duo Bao, and Hu Niu, but also the formation masters that long disappeared reappeared. Your eyes are so fixed on me? Why don't I take off my clothes and let you look to your heart's content? Yin Hong said, clenching her teeth. Although she had a faint smile, she emitted a dangerous presence. Ling Han didn't withdraw his gaze. He was not at all interested in Yin Hong's body, only looking at the formations on her body. He had seen quite a few formations in his previous life, but seeing formations that were carved on the body was a first. Formations, it's certainly a pretty good thing, Ling Han said. If you don't mind, take off your clothes and let me study it carefully. Get lost! Yin Hong hurriedly covered her chest and ran into the building to change into new clothes. Zhu Xuan Er looked extremely surprised at Hu Niu. She couldn't see through Hu Niu, thinking that Hu Niu didn't cultivate at all. She never expected to judge so wrongly. Hu Niu not only awaked a spirit base, but also was a spiritual ocean tier cultivator. A 5 to 6 year old at the spiritual ocean tier. What did this mean? In comparison, her cultivation was not worth mentioning. The difference was way too large. In the martial arts world, all those below the flower blossom tier were nobody's mortals. However, it could be said that the preceding 5 tiers were relatively easy to attain, and no matter how young a spiritual pedestal tier warrior was, it wouldn't be strange. However, a 5 to 6 year old at the spiritual ocean tier? How could she not be shocked? Hu Niu's senses were extremely amazing. She immediately discovered Zhu Xuan Er's gaze, then made a face at her, displaying intense enmity. Ling Han laughed and said, Lady Zhu, what do you need crimson red chilling ice grass for? Zhu Xuan Er was momentarily startled, and said, So you were there that day. She paused for a moment, then went on. I need it to refine a heaven-grade medicinal pill, and crimson red chilling ice grass is one of the supplemental ingredients. Crimson red chilling ice grass could only act as supplemental ingredient? Well, that was a heaven-grade medicinal pill. Ling Han felt it strange and said, I heard your teacher has been possessed by the devil, but I think that medium level, or at most high level earth-grade medicinal pill can take care of it, no need for the heaven-grade ones. If another person were to say these words, Zhu Xuan Er would definitely ignore them. However, Ling Han was a low-level earth-grade alchemist. Regarding actual status, he was far above her. Even the sect master of the Winter Moon sect would show respect when seeing Ling Han. She said, My teacher received a Dao injury, and it can't be cured without a heaven-grade medicinal pill. Ling Han felt it even stranger and said, Your master's is at most a spiritual infant cultivator, so how could he possibly receive a Dao injury? Dao injury, also known as injury of the Great Dao, was a backlash injury received when fathoming the power of heaven and earth. Only the Shattering Void Tier warriors had the right to fathom heaven and earth, so naturally only they could receive Dao injuries. Other than that, the Shattering Void Tier martial artists could invoke the power of heaven, and earth enemies inflicted by it would also suffer a Dao injury. The problem was, if a Shattering Void Tier warrior attacked, could someone with the strength of the spiritual infant tier only receive an injury? More probably, they should have died several hundred times. Zhu Xuan Er shook her head and didn't answer. Obviously, this matter involved a secret. They simply had an intimate talk as mere acquaintances, so how could she reveal the bottom of it so easily? Ling Han didn't ask any further, but obviously, he and Zhu Xuan Er would be competing against each other for that crimson-red chilling ice grass. Sorry, but I also need the crimson-red chilling ice grass, he said. Zhu Xuan Er immediately revealed a fierce enmity. This was the life-saving medicine for her teacher. Besides, the reason why she accepted to battle for Yin Hong was because Yin Hong promised to help her find the other main ingredients, and head to the middle state to request a heaven-grade alchemist to refine the pill. Chapter 386 Exchange for Formations. Chapter 386 Exchange for Formations. Reverie _ Hunyo revealed a vicious expression as well. Zhu Xuan Er dared to direct killing intent at Ling Han, making the little girl instantly enter a battle stance. Her small figure sprung tightly, already prepared to attack. Ling Han pressed his hand on Hunyo's shoulder, stopping her from being rash, and said, "Let me guess, there are 4 types of heaven-grade medicinal pills that can cure Dao injuries. But only Hidden Tiger Heavenly Luck pill needs crimson-red chilling ice grass." Zhu Xuan Er's pupils immediately narrowed. Ling Han was right, and she was collecting ingredients precisely to refine Hidden Tiger Heavenly Luck pill. Ling Han nodded, confirming his thoughts with her reaction, and went on. The Hidden Tiger Heavenly Luck pill's main ingredients are 9 Dao Sound Heaven fruit, 4 Elephant Heaven Wolf grass, and Extreme Dark Dragon Emperor fruit. The main ingredients can't be replaced, but the supplemental ingredients can. You're saying all this just to make me not compete with you for the crimson-red chilling ice grass? Zhu Xuan Er immediately saw through Ling Han's intentions. Ling Han laughed and said, "That's right. I'm not afraid of you, but seeing that we'll be fighting side by side in the future, I'm giving you an advice and a notice you won't be able to get it. However, you don't have to worry even if you don't get crimson-red chilling ice grass, since the supplemental medicines can be exchanged. Master Ling, even if the crimson-red chilling ice grass can be exchanged, just how many 7-tier spirit grasses are there in the world?" Zhu Xuan Er replied with a question. "This crimson-red chilling ice grass. I'm determined to have it." Ling Han shrugged his shoulders and said, "Then it'll be a match of our abilities. However, when I snatch it, don't snivel." Zhu Xuan Er instantly wanted to roll her eyes. She wasn't a child and wouldn't snivel. She was a bit irritated inside. This was the first time she encountered someone who didn't care for her charm, making it somewhat hard for her to adapt. The second, of course, was Hunyo with enmity all across her face, as if she would fight with her over Ling Han. Pa, even if Ling Han was a heaven-grade alchemist, she would at most ask him to refine pills. As for liking him? Impossible. Someone she would like should be a martial arts genius, and not a blockhead that only knew to refine pills. "Yo, seems you guys were having a great talk. Did I come back at the wrong time?" Yin Hong walked over, swinging her plump buttocks. With her naturally slender and supple waist, once she started walking, she was exceedingly seductive, which couldn't be concealed at all. Ling Han laughed loudly and said, "Not at all. Lady Yin, do you have any secret scrolls on formations that you can lend me for reference?" Yin Hong rolled her eyes at Ling Han right away and said, "What do you think secret scrolls on formations are? You think I would let you use it for reference just because you said so? I can exchange using arts and techniques of a similar level," Ling Han said with justification. He didn't need to spend his thoughts on alchemy in his lifetime, and already had experience in martial arts simply treading over it again, so he had large amounts of time left over. Using it to learn formations was just right. He saw the power of Yin Hong's formations, which was even able to block Hunyo's attack. This was quite out of the ordinary, which made him deeply interested. Besides, he would definitely enter all sorts of historic sites in the future, and if he was highly accomplished in formations, it would be extremely helpful. Moreover, the treasure troves and medicinal gardens of every sect were protected by formations. Blood-sucking origin gold could open the locks, but couldn't deal with formations. Yin Hong laughed mischievously and said, "Alright, if you can bring high-level arts or techniques, then I'll exchange with you." "Sure." Ling Han had no intention of staying any longer, and immediately said goodbye. he returned to pick some arts and skills to exchange for a few formations to study. It gave him something to do before he ventured into the dark demon forest. He left with Hu Niu, and the courtyard was suddenly left with Zhu Xuan Er and Yin Hong. This guy is truly a weirdo. Ignoring my charm isn't a big deal, but even ignoring you. Could he be a eunuch? Yin Hong said, baffled. Zhu Xuan Er instantly turned red all across the face and said, Sister Hong, you're shooting your mouth off again. So the two girls already knew each other. It wasn't strange. Zhu Xuan Er sought to find the materials for refining the hidden tiger heavenly luck pill, and the fastest way was through the Spirit Treasures Pavilion. So, Zhu Xuan Er and Yin Hong knowing each other was naturally very normal. However, you can really consider it. This guy truly has the possibility of becoming a heaven-grade alchemist before 30 years old. That would be equivalent to a mighty shattering void-tier warrior, and with his help, finding those main ingredients would be much easier. Otherwise, a 9th-tier spirit grass, a spiritual pedestal-tier cultivator like you can't possibly obtain it, Yin Hong said again. Zhu Xuan Er sighed. The supplemental medicines were not a problem, but the 3 main medicines would really drive her to death. And what did she have? Unmatched looks. Would she have to exchange for them with her body? After Ling Han returned to the inn, he immediately entered the Black Tower, searching through his mind for suitable arts and techniques. Inside the Black Tower, he was almost omnipotent. Reviving the dead was obviously undoable. Hundreds of charcoal pens moved and sheets of silk paper floated in the air. With a G, there were several rows of writing on the silk papers. With only one night's effort, Ling Han already wrote 100 volumes of arts and techniques. Should be enough. He smiled slightly and left the tower, heading to the Spirit Treasures Pavilion again. Young Master Ling, you've returned so quickly? Is it because you still want to see Sister Zhu? Unfortunately, she left early in the morning and headed to the Dark Demon Forest, Yin Hong said with a smile. Ling also smiled and said, I came here just to see Lady Yin. What's to see about me? I'm not even 1/100th the beauty of Sister Zhu. I have some arts and techniques. Have a look and see how many formations it can exchange for. Ling Han threw out the 10 volumes of arts and techniques. Yin Hong no longer jested, picking up an art and swept a glance, instantly revealing a shocked expression. She said, Earth-grade art. She continued to pick up other books to read, and her charming face continued to change colors. These were not only earth-grade arts, but also those of different elements, suited for people of all sorts of spirit bases, which was very hard to come by. Young Master Ling is truly a person of extraordinary talent. She sighed in exclamation. Ling Han laughed and said, Some people asked me to refine pills but couldn't pay the price, so they could only use arts to make up the numbers. This was the truth, but also things that happened in his previous life. For example, he demanded the 3 styles of black origin and wore Elephant Fist from Sword Emperor and Na Lan Tuesday. Since young Master Ling is so straightforward, then it would be rude of me to keep hiding things. Yin Hong wiped the table with her right hand, and instantly 3 ancient records appeared. These books were definitely not made of normal materials, as the books each emitted an ancient presence. Ling Han picked them up to read. Written separately on the 3 books were Formation Basics Introduction, Formation Basics Introduction, and Formation Basics Introduction. He shook his head and said, Lady Yin, I've taken out 10 Earth-grade arts, yet you give me 3 books on Formation Basics? Yin Hong giggled, throwing out another book, and said, I'll add this small heavenly origin spirit snake formation, but no more, or else I'd rather not exchange. That's more like it. Ling Han picked up the book. Small heavenly origin spirit snake formation, revealing a smile. Chapter 387 Studying Formations. Chapter 387 Studying Formations. Reverie _ Although Ling Han wrote several hundred books on arts and techniques, he had no intention of giving out them all. The 3 formation basics and on top of that 1 branch of formation was enough to study intensively for a while. So, he decided to leave and head to the Dark Demon Forest. Bringing Hunyo, he hired a carriage since the journey would take over 10 days. It was better to hire a carriage to serve as transport. Inside the carriage, Hunyo relished and nibbled on the dried meat while Ling Han took out the formation basics and began flipping through it. Very soon, he revealed an odd expression. Martial arts were a process of cultivating oneself, viewing the human body as a large treasure and excavating the endless potential within. There was a saying in the martial arts world, "One man, one world." It meant that when martial arts were cultivated to the extreme, a martial artist oneself could become an enormous world, possessing supreme power. Formations were exactly the opposite. This path revered the natural power of heaven and earth. It purported to be borrowing the power of heaven and earth and changing it for personal use. Therefore, the key was how to borrow the power of heaven and earth. A medium was needed to borrow the power of heaven and earth, called the formation's eye. A formation's eye could appear in all shapes and forms, such as a sword, a saber, or a flag. However, not just any sword, rock, or flag could serve as the formation's eye. There were still very strict requirements. First, the material's quality, and second, the formation patterns carved on it. The one who compiled this book on formations liked to use flags as the formation's eye, and called them formation flags. Formation flags were like martial arts, separated into 10 tiers, and formations arrayed by different tiers of formation flags had different powers. High-tier formation flags could be used to array low-tier formations, but not the other way around. High-level formations had to be set by high-tier formation flags. Otherwise, the formation flags couldn't possibly endure the power of heaven and earth drawn in, instantly exploding. Thus, effective tools were necessary for the successful execution of a job. Only by finding the suitable materials and making them into formation flags or using other formations could one begin to discuss how to array the formation. Ling Han was eager to give it a try. When they passed by a large city, he spent 30,000 origin crystals and bought a chunk of purple-veined gold, which was an extremely high cost for about 1 pound. This was a 5th-tier cast metal, which could be forged into spiritual ocean tier level spirit tools. Of course, it would be expensive. Thankfully, it was only a little over 1 pound, not enough to be formed into a sword, saber, or other weapons, or else 30,000 origin crystals wouldn't be enough. Ling Han immediately entered the Black Tower. Inside, he could summon raging flames and easily melt the chunk of precious gold into 7 small metal poles. Since he lacked the materials, he didn't make it into a formation flag. It was more important to carve the formation patterns. And as for what form the formation's eye had, it made no difference. This was the first step. The second step was to carve formation patterns on the metal poles. This was the most crucial step. Formation patterns drew in the power of heaven and earth, so the effects were completely different based on the element of the formation pattern and the type of formation arrayed. Ling Han forged 7 metal rods fastidiously based on small heavenly origin spirit snake formation. Once he carved the formation patterns onto it, it could become a true formation's eye. He would then be able to spread it beside him and the formation would become complete by itself, having both defensive and offensive effects. The problem was how would he carve the formation patterns onto the poles? This wasn't drawing, completed just by following the design. Formations could draw in the power of heaven and earth because it was a sort of understanding, like martial intent. You either understood it, or you didn't. There was no third option. If he wanted to brand the formation patterns onto metal, he first had to understand the formation. Therefore, the people who understood it deeply were high-level formation masters, and the people who understood it superficially were low-level formation masters. Ling Han studied all sorts of formations in his previous life. Of course, he studied how to overcome them, in other words, the loopholes in the formations. This could be referenced, not to mention that he possessed the divine sense and martial arts comprehension of the heaven tier. Turning around to study low-level formations was truly too easy. He kept exclaiming from realizations, advancing fiercely on formations. 5 days later, he threw aside the 3 formation basics introduction books and picked up a rock, carving formation patterns on it. Every formation pattern had to be carved in one go, completed without a pause. If it weren't smooth, it would affect the activation of heaven and earth's power. One could make at most 3 pauses in drawing the formation's eye, or else it would be worthless. For a 4th-tier formation's eye, the minimum of formation patterns carved was 9, and the maximum was 15, all of which had to be squeezed onto a small metal rod. Small heavenly origin spirit snake formation needed to use 7 formations eyes to arrange, each limited to 15 formation patterns. Amongst 4th-level formations it could be considered of high quality, and speaking from this point, Yin Hong was quite fair. Ling Han began to carve formation patterns. After he carved 15 formation patterns on a rock, he carefully examined it, finding that at least 8 were wrong. Moreover, those that weren't wrong had several pauses. It was all right. He didn't count on becoming a formation master all of a sudden. He progressed slowly. On the 11th day since departing from the extreme Yang city, Ling Han finally arrived at the outskirts of the Dark Demon Forest. The coachman was unwilling to go further, and after Ling Han came off the carriage, the former immediately whipped the horse and left in a hurry. This was an extremely chaotic place. No single force occupied it, but of all places, this place was rich in spirit grass, attracting large amounts of forces to enter and harvest medicine. Under the massive profitability, conflicts broke out, often spilling blood and killing were more than ordinary occurrences. The Dark Demon Forest had no hegemon, but there were 4 relatively strong forces. Since they developed from within the Dark Demon Forest, they were like the local tyrants, and even large forces like the Winter Moon sect and the Beast Emperor sect wouldn't provoke them. These 4 forces were Bloodlight House, Heavenly Silkworm Court, Devour Bone Court, and Gus Demon Clan, all of which were said to have Flower Blossom tier elites backing them up. Other than the large forces, there were many medium and small-scale forces that sought survival in the crevices, even desiring to replace the 4 large forces. It was rumored that many medium-scale forces even received the support of a grand sect like Wintermoon sect, but whether it was real or fake, no one could say clearly. The 4 large forces had many campsites open to the public within the Dark Demon Forest. These sites were equivalent to ramparts, providing protection for martial artists that gathered medicine. However, they were definitely not philanthropists. Those who wanted to enter the campsite had to pay money, which of course meant origin crystals, which could also be replaced with spirit grasses and tool refining materials. In the campsite, no one was to use force. This was the most basic rule. Once outside, you could fight till heads flew wildly and it wouldn't matter. Ling Han walked arbitrarily as all his thoughts were on formations. After studying for 10 days, he had a strong interest in formations, which, when combined with martial arts, could unleash an incredible effect. In reality, formations were closely tied with every martial artist. The simplest example would be spirit tools, which actually belonged to the area of formations. Branding one's martial intent on it was the most coarse formation pattern. However, if actual formations patterns were branded on a spirit tool, combining the two, the power unleashed was naturally stronger. "Fellow brother, if you're alone, why not join us?" He walked slowly and was soon passed by a team when one of the members offered him an olive branch. Chapter 388 Targeted. Chapter 388 Targeted. Reverie _Ed/N. Watch out, this is chapter 390, so if it ends up published right after 387, know that 388 and 389 come after this one. Maybe we'll be able to fix it or it'll fix itself, but I'm leaving you folks a heads up in case that doesn't happen. The conditions in the stronghold were harsh. There weren't any good lodgings. It was simply a room made of bamboo, and not to mention the terrible soundproofing effects, there was even a crack where others could peep through. Ling Han didn't really care, since it was only for 2 nights anyways. After he left, the news of him being a foolishly rich person spread and everyone wanted to receive treasure ginsengs as reward, heading out to inquire one after another. There wasn't much hope within this stronghold and everyone knew of Ling Han's bounty, so some went to the next stronghold to check out the situation. However, some people harbored killing intent as well, waiting for Ling Han to leave the stronghold so that they could kill him and seize his goods. He was only a youngster at the 5th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. How strong could he be? He looked like a delicate flower grown inside a greenhouse, and his battle prowess was probably not even 4 stars. At night, a medicinal harvesting team of 20 entered the stronghold. It was exactly the party with the red-clothed woman whom Ling Han came into conflict with. They came to the northwestern corner of the stronghold. The harvesters crammed into one large bamboo room and the guards also crammed into one, but the red-clothed woman entered a single-person bamboo room, where a 30-year-old man already waited for her. "Wan Qing!" The man heard knocking, and when he saw the red-clothed woman, he couldn't help but be pleasantly surprised. His eyes burned with desire as he pulled her into his embrace, unable to restrain from getting fresh. "Naughty, haven't you touched enough? So impatient." The red-clothed woman, Ding Wanqing, swung her hips, teasing the other person. The man was also surnamed Ding Ding Gao Yang. He was from the same family as Ding Wanqing. However, their bloodlines were extremely distant, far beyond 5 generations of ancestors, so they weren't forbidden from marriage. However, Ding Gao Yang already had a wife, so the two were obviously carrying on an affair. The two ultimately didn't have their happy time. After all, the soundproofing was terrible, and Ding Wanqing wasn't a chicken with no sense of shame. "Brother Gao Yang, have you seen a youngster about 17 or 18, half a head taller than me, with very white skin like a young master in the stronghold today?" Ding Wanqing lay in Ding Gao Yang's embrace and began to ask about Ling Han. She was slapped, which was something could absolutely not tolerate. How do you know him?" Ding Gao Yang naturally knew the bounty Ling Han issued in the day, and immediately connected the two people together. "He really is here?" Ding Wanqing instantly revealed an ominous glint. "Don't rush, tell me everything from start to end," Ding Gao Yang hurriedly said. He knew Ling Han possessed great wealth. As long as Ling Han stayed in the safety area, Ling Han could stir up great commotion. Ding Wanqing spoke about what happened in the day. She naturally put all the blame on Ling Han, saying how domineering he was without mentioning at all how cheap her mouth was. After she finished talking, Ding Gao Yang couldn't help but snort and said, "What a daring brat, hitting my little sister Wanqing! Brother Gao Nag, you have to do me justice," Ding Wanqing said in a sweet voice. Ding Gao Yang nodded, and immediately went on. "This matter needs to be considered at length. This youngster knocks 7 of your guards flying. Such battle prowess is extremely terrifying. Even I can only be ashamed of being inferior. Then what do we do? Am I just going to take that slap for nothing?" Ding Wanwing almost threw a tantrum. Ding Gao Yang hugged her tightly and said, "Don't worry, I'll ask a spiritual pedestal tier elite to attack. Taking him down would be more than enough. Even if that fails, my brother is training out here. He placed 66th on the previous term's prodigy roll and is now at the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. I'll immediately have someone contact him and have him come over. If clan brother Yuan Xian steps in, then there'll be absolutely no chance of failure," Ding Wanqing said. In reality, wasn't it for a great tree like Yuan Xian that she got in bed with Ding Gao Yang? This was the most remarkable clansman in the history of the Ding family. He was now only 37 years old but already at the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. Ding Gao Yang laughed coldly. Ling Han was probably a descendant of some alchemist family. That was why he had so many treasure ginsengs on him, and reached the 5th layer of the spiritual ocean tier at such a young age. However, this was the dark demon forest. All backgrounds were useless here. The things on this kid were all his. Ling Han stayed for a night. On the second day, he continued to seek information on the Dark Demon Forest. The reason why the Dark Demon Forest had such a name was firstly because the environment here was very gloomy, with dark hanging over for many years, and secondly because there was dark fog everywhere, making the entire forest appear gloomier. That fog was like demonic qi, affecting the hearts of people and beasts. There were many cases of people going mad after spending too long in them. And thus came the name of the Dark Demon Forest. Demonic qi enveloped the entire forest, but the further from the middle of the forest, the less dense the demonic qi was. The effects on living things were minuscule, but it still had its effects, making people and beasts more bellicose. At the core area of the forest, The demonic chi was terrifying, easily turning a person into a lunatic. However, if one didn't have enough strength, one couldn't possibly enter the depths and would have long been torn to shreds by crazy yet strong beasts. It could be said that the most scary thing in the dark demon forest wasn't a martial artist or a beast, but the demonic chi. Ling Han didn't fear it as he had the Black Tower. At that time, even Azura Demon Emperor's demonic chi could easily be cleansed. The demonic chi here should be far inferior. Anyways, with Black Tower at hand, he was very much at ease. When it was noon, someone came to visit Ling Han. It was a 30-year-old man who didn't announce his surname. Ling Han of course thought it was nothing out of the ordinary. The man told him of a location that extremely conformed with his requirements of the cold and the heat's intertwinement. After Ling Han paid 10 treasure ginsengs, he decided to set out. He knew his wealth attracted the covetous eyes of many, but he didn't care. The strongest cultivator outside the stronghold was only at the first layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. Now, the first layer of the spiritual pedestal tier really wasn't much in Ling Han's eyes. He wouldn't even need to use his trump card to kill an expert at such a level. Ling Han departed. Once he left, half of the people in the entire stronghold seemed to have left too. Their intentions could easily be guessed at if one wasn't stupid. Why did Ling Han search for a place where the cold and heat intertwined? Because crimson-red chilling ice grass only grew at such places, and this spirit grass had the two special qualities of cold and heat. The more severely cold and the more torridly hot it was nearby, the better the crimson-red chilling ice grass grew, and the more mature it could become. Hunyo was bored from staying inside the Black Tower, so Ling Han found a remote place to let her out. Soon, an adult and a child holding hands were going for a stroll inside the forest, as if it weren't the extremely vicious and sinister dark demon forest, but just a normal small forest. However, this harmony was soon broken. "Youngster, stop!" 5 people suddenly appeared in front, each one revealing a ferocious look. Sha! 5 more people came out from behind, preventing Ling Han's retreat. Ling Han was shocked, because amongst those who blocked his path in front was the brawny man who tricked him of one origin crystal, later had a bounty placed by him, and at last begged him for forgiveness. He couldn't help but laugh and said, "You really remain unrepentant to the end. Is it uncomfortable to be alive?" Chapter 389 A Minor Conflict. Chapter 389 A Minor Conflict. Reverie _ This was a medicine harvesting team's even martial artists as guards along with 12 medicinal farmers who carried bamboo baskets on their backs. There was also a beautiful red-clothed woman who looked like their employer. There were 20 people in total. Such a medicine harvesting team in the dark demon forest could only be considered a small-scale team. There were 100 and even 1,000 people medicine harvesting teams here as well. Ling Han's gaze swept by. The 7 guards were at the spiritual ocean tier, quite an impressive strength. The one who invitated him was a 40-year-old brawny man, tall and sturdy, with arms thicker than Ling Han's waist and shockingly well-defined muscles. Without waiting for Ling Han to reply, somewhat displeased, the red-clothed woman spoke. "Guard Wu, if you want to invite someone into the team, why not seek for my opinion first?" The brawny man laughed loudly and said, "It was already agreed upon when we left that we were going to recruit 10 guards, and now we've only recruited 7. I, as the guard squad captain, naturally have the right to recruit people. So the other people aren't qualified," the red-clothed woman said. "He qualifies." The brawny man pointed at Ling Han. "The 5th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, is that not enough?" What? This young man was actually at the 5th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. The other people were shocked, feeling that Ling Han was just too young. "Lady Ding, let him join the team." "Yeah, the 5th layer of the spiritual ocean tier isn't weak." The other guards all began to urge. Although the 5th layer of the spiritual ocean tier certainly wasn't high in terms of cultivation, entering this level in the teens clearly meant something. What? The fact that Ling Han's background was extremely remarkable. Although it was an extremely chaotic place, if there was someone of the Winter Moon sect or the Half Moon sect around, then it could be life-saving at key moments. Thus, these people naturally wouldn't refuse Ling Han joining and adding an insurance to their lives. The red-clothed woman pondered, and said, "All right, but Guard Wu, you have to be responsible for keeping him out of trouble." "Deal!" The brawn man laughed as he nodded, then cracked a smile at Ling Han and said, "Little brother, how about it? 1 day for 1 origin crystal, you won't encounter such a good job every day." Spiritual Ocean Tier warriors could only refine 1 origin crystal per month, and now obtaining 1 per day, the treatment was certainly not bad. Ling Han broke into laughter and said, "You guys have been speaking of your own accord. I don't remember saying that I wanted to join you guys, right?" You've got an objection?" The red-clothed woman wasn't too happy to begin with. Hearing that Ling Han refused to join the team, she appeared even more displeased all of a sudden. Such great nerve, slap him. Ling Han shook his head. He felt that he was truly unjustly attacked while walking down the road properly without provoking anyone. How did misfortune come upon him? Could he really have a troublesome constitution, attracting trouble wherever he went? "You think I'm easy to bully?" He was angered and raised his hand, lashing towards the red-clothed woman. "Stop!" The 7 guards shouted at once and intervened one after another, blocking Ling Han. These people's tears had highs and lows, but the worst was at the 6th layer and the strongest at the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. However, none of them had battle prowess surpassing their own tier after all. Most people were very ordinary. Ling Han smiled lightly as sword intent instantly burst forth. "Shio, shio, shio, shio!" 7 flashes of sword she shot out, slicing towards the 7 guards. What battle prowess did he have? When he was at the 1st layer of the spiritual ocean tier, he had 16 stars, and now it rocketed to 20 stars. Surpassing the other party's strongest person by 11 stars of battle prowess, this was definitely overwhelming. The 7 guards struck by the 7 flashes of sword she were sent flying at the same time. Fortunately, Ling Han held back, merely opening a small wound on their chests. Otherwise, this attack would have taken their lives. "Pa!" The red-clothed woman was slapped right on the face, whipping out 3 of her teeth. "Don't always look at people with that condescending look. This slap is a small lesson for you. If there's a next time, I'll take your life," Ling Han said coldly. The red-clothed woman clenched her teeth with an expression of disbelief. First, Ling Han was only at the 5th layer of the spiritual ocean tier and actually sent 7 of her guards flying. And second, this guy actually dared to hit her. She was a daughter of the Ding family and looked beautiful as a flower. Was this guy blind? Even more, how ruthless was he to hit a beautiful face such as hers? Ling Han turned to leave. Whether it was the 7 guards or the medicinal farmers, they all stayed quiet without making a sound. Ling Han's strength was so far beyond their imagination that they hadn't come back to their sense even till now. "A bunch of good-for-nothings!" the red-clothed woman reprimanded angrily, covering her dainty swollen face, and said, "Hurry to Rising Wind Stronghold. Gao Yang clan's brother is there, ask him to handle that damned brat. Lady Ding, that youngster has the cultivation of the 5th layer of the spiritual ocean tier at such a young age, and his battle prowess is even more shocking. He must have strong background, so why not let this go?" the brawny man surnamed Wu advised. Since he was the one who spoke of recruiting Ling Han, he felt somewhat responsible. In the dark demon forest, so what if he has a strong background? It'll be useless if he dies here. The red-clothed woman's gaze was bitter with resentment. She couldn't stomach this insult. "Go!" The team continued to advance. Walking for half a day, a stronghold appeared in front of Ling Han. This was Gus Demon Clan's territory, a place providing temporary shelter for martial artists. Ling Han also wanted to inquire about crimson red chilling ice grass, so he entered the stronghold, the price for which was 1 origin crystal. The stronghold wasn't large, it had the area of a small village. The surrounding sturdy trees were made into a barricade, but the houses inside were made of bamboo, boasting extremely poor soundproofing and privacy. There were truly people of all trades here. Ling Han saw several girls dressed revealingly standing by the roadside, shooting coquettish glances at passers-by. If they liked what they saw, they'd get together and leave, Soon, groans and moans, which made people's blood vessels swell, would come from the bamboo houses. For martial artists, after experiencing an intense adventure, they naturally hoped to relax a little. Where there was need, there would be market even if it was a dangerous place such as the Dark Demon Forest. The most ancient profession thrived. As Ling Han walked by, quite a few of these girls tried to entice him, but he paid them no attention, walking straight to a tavern. He ordered a few things, but was mostly here to ask around. "Hey, have you guys heard the renowned fairy Zhu came here several days ago?" "What? Zhu Xuan Er, the one known as the most beautiful woman in the North region? Is she really that beautiful?" "Far more, as I see it, she should be called most beautiful in the world. But since she dares enter the Dark Demon Forest, is she not afraid of being like a lamb in a tiger's den? Hee, who knows how many people want to take this beauty for their private pet? Besides, this is the Dark Demon Forest. If someone falls into enemy hands here, even the Half-Moon sect can't do a thing. You don't have a share anyways. Pa either, do you?" Hearing everyone's conversations, Ling Han shook his head. Zhu Xuan Er was only a spiritual pedestal tier cultivator. If she encountered a flower blossom tier, she wouldn't even have the chance to run away. It was surprising she dared to come here alone. He held up his wine cup, approaching a table with 3 people, and said, "3 fellow brothers, I've got something to ask of you guys. Is there a place here where the cold and hot intertwine?" Chapter 390. You're tricking me? Chapter 390. You're tricking me? Reverie _ Youngster, you just came to the Demon Forest, right? A 30-year-old brawny man said with a smile to Ling Han. Yes. Ling Han nodded. This could be told with one glance. Other people all reeked with an intense, muddy smell, which was from being exposed in the forest during day and night. The brawny man laughed quietly, reaching out his hand, and said, "Here, everything is a deal. If you want to ask questions, you have to give people benefits." "How much?" Ling Han smiled lightly. His wallet was now bulging again, so he naturally was more indifferent to origin crystal. 1 origin crystal. The brawn man put up a finger. 1 question for 1 origin crystal, so shady. Ling Han didn't really care, as long as he could find crimson red chilling ice grass. Even if he paid 1,000,000 origin crystals for it, he wouldn't feel regret. He handed over 1 origin crystal at once. The brawny man took the origin crystal and suppressed a laugh. "Time to answer the question." Ling Han knocked on the table. "All right." The brawny man nodded and said, "I don't know." Ling Han's gaze immediately turned sharp and said, "You're tricking me? Youngster, I'm teaching you a lesson. Grow up a bit when you're out in the world, don't believe people so easily." The brawny man laughed, not worried at all that Ling Han might attack him. Because this was Gus Demon Clan's territory, if Ling Han dared to use violence here, he would be driven out, and at worst killed. Otherwise, this place wouldn't be a safe refuge. It was said that strongholds like this even had many notoriously vicious wanted criminals who ran here from being chased by sects like the Winter Moon sect and the Beast Emperor sect. However, they didn't dare to use violence inside the stronghold. It was clear just how domineering the 4 large forces were here. Ling Han took the man's arrogance all in, and casually waved his hand on the table. Instantly 10 ginsengs appeared on the table. Each one was as thick as an arm, the roots as muscular as a dragon. Hiss! As people saw this, they stared with wide round eyes. These were at least 200 to 300-year-old precious ginsengs. Inside the Dark Demon Forest, there indeed were some precious ginsengs like this, but one needed to enter the core area of the forest. Since it was too dangerous there, not to mention that no one usually entered it, even the beasts were very scarce, so there were large mounts of spirit medicines with surprisingly maturity. Such a precious ginseng would easily sell for several dozens of origin crystals, 10 of which was worth several hundred origin crystals. This was a large fortune. If spiritual ocean tier warriors didn't steal or rob it, they would need at least a dozen years to refine it. At that moment, people's breathing sped up and their eyes turned red, itching to snatch it. Ling Han smiled lightly. Pointing at the brawny man from earlier, he said, "These ginseng will belong to whoever kills him. Instantly, all eyes were on that brawny man. This man was only at the second layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Annihilating him wouldn't be much harder than the flip of a palm for late-stage spiritual ocean tier martial artists. Where would one find a business that paid several hundred origin crystals for just lifting a finger? Moreover, 100-year-old ginsengs were greatly tonic. Normal medicinal pills couldn't heal the hidden injuries that were inevitably left after these martial artists fought with people and beasts. Only such great tonics could heal them completely. Such a treasure might come by with luck, but not through searching. "Youngster, violence can't be used inside the stronghold," someone said. Ling Han smiled and said, "No matter, you guys just keep an eye. Although I will leave soon after, I'll place the 10 ginsengs with the stronghold master. Whoever kills him can get it from the stronghold master. Is everyone reassured now?" "Okay. That works." Everyone nodded. There were certainly people who issued missions inside the stronghold, asking for people's help. However, as it happened through the Gust Demon clan, there was an inevitable rake-off. Therefore, everyone hoped that the brawny man left the stronghold soon. Killing him without delay, they received the reward from Ling Han directly. This way, they could avoid losing part of the reward to the Gust Demon clan. The brawny man's face turned green. Never would he have thought that tricking one origin crystal from Ling Han would result in him being possibly killed. He hurriedly took out the origin crystal as if a hot potato and threw it towards Ling Han. "I don't want your origin crystal, hurry up and withdraw your bounty." Which family's spoiled second generation was this? Wasting precious ginsengs like this? Did his mother know that he was this kick-ass? Ling Han didn't catch it and said, "Take it, it'll be just enough to order a good casket." The brawny man was on the verge of crying from fear. He only wanted to take a small advantage of him, but who could have thought that it would attract a deadly misfortune? He hurriedly dropped to the ground and knelt down facing Ling Han, then said, "Little lord, I was wrong, please forgive me." "You really know your wrongs?" Ling Han smiled. "I really do." The brawny man kept slapping himself in the face, one slap after another with a lot of force, such that blood even came out. Ling Han nodded and said, "All right, this bounty is cancelled." Instantly, the brawny man gasped in relief, but the other people were dissatisfied, feeling they were messed with. There weren't many people here who were amiable. Many of them stared at Ling Han with an ominous glint, and once Ling Han left the stronghold, he. Ling Han was unperturbed, and said, "The bounty just now is cancelled, and changed to a new one. Whoever knows, tell me where in the forest do the cold and hot intertwineth these 10 precious ginsengs will be theirs." "For real?" People's expressions turned back to pleasantly surprised ones. Ling Han nodded and said, "Of course it's for real. However, if anyone takes me for a fool and mentions a random place, then I won't mind issuing another bounty for that person." People clicked their tongues. The brawny man only tricked Ling Han out of 1 origin crystal, and yet the latter issued a bounty of 10 treasure ginsengs. If one tricked Ling Han out of 10 treasure ginsengs, then what price tag would Ling Han offer for that bounty? Such a spoiled second generation was truly scary rich, and thus intractable. For a moment people were silent. Some who thought of deceiving were really frightened. "This young lord, I know a place that suits your description." After a while, a person spoke up. He spoke of a place in the northwest part of Dark Demon Forest, and gave Ling Han a map, clearly labeling the location. Ling Han inquired carefully, but was very disappointed. It certainly was a place where the cold and hot intertwined, but it was far too different from his requirements. However, to show his sincerity, he still gave the person 10 treasure ginsengs to establish his credibility. "Anyone else that knows of such a place, 1 clue for 10 treasure ginsengs." Ling Han waved his hand and took out 10 more 100-year-old ginsengs. This thing was like cabbage to him anyways. Someone received a reward. This instantly excited many others. Even those who were looking on wanted to have a try. If they personally didn't know, it didn't matter. Couldn't they ask around? "I'll be staying here for 2 days. If anyone has news, come find me," Ling Han said for all to hear, and left the tavern, renting a guest room. Chapter 391 A Clean Sweep. Chapter 391 A a clean sweep. Reverie _ That damned guy! The brawny man was called Pu Chuan and was at the third layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Such strength wasn't weak, it could come and go freely just about anywhere with it, and was barely qualified to be called an elite. However, he had been forced by Ling Han to kneel down and beg for forgiveness in the public's eye. Just how humiliating was that? Such a grievance on top of coveting the belongings on Ling Han meant he couldn't possibly stare blankly and let Ling Hang leave. The battle prowess of a spoiled second generation at a mere fifth layer of the spiritual ocean tier was definitely not past 4 stars. Even if he wasn't a match for him alone, there were still 9 other people, weren't there? Youngster, hand over the spatial ring obediently and we can let you live, another person said. This was obviously a lie. After they took the spatial ring, they'd commit murder. Ling Han laughed and said to Hu Niu, Niu, do you think I'm an idiot? Ling Han obviously isn't an idiot. Ling Han is a smart person, Hu Niu said hurriedly and patted her small chest, adding, Hu Niu is also a smart person. Hee, but some people just want to trick me like I'm a monkey. Ling Han shook his head. Hu Niu instantly revealed an ominous glint, and said, Niu will bite them all to death. Niu, don't kill people with your mouth, it's too dirty. Ling Han rubbed her small head. Hu Niu nodded repeatedly at once. Although she didn't think biting people to death was dirty, Ling Han didn't like it, so she would avoid doing so. You guys done yet? Pu Chuan and the 9 others were infuriated after being mocked by an adult and a child. However, what was strange was that they didn't see that little girl yesterday, right? She probably followed him into the stronghold and always stayed inside the bamboo room. Everyone soon understood. Since he won't listen, then kill him in case of undue trouble, Pu Chuan and the others clamored. There were many groups in the entire stronghold that conspired against Ling Han, so naturally it was best to strike first lest other people got ahead. Let me! Pu Chuan immediately jumped out. With a chang, he unsheathed a long saber, striking towards Ling Han. Hu Niu made a move, and she leapt overhead of Pu Chuan. With a paw, she fired her small fist at him. Instantly, Pu Chuan's head actually spun around his neck 7 to 8 times and the skin on the neck was twisted off. A perfectly fine head instantly fell down, and blood rushed 10 feet high as if a blood fountain, finally falling back down rapidly. Martial artists were full of qi and blood, especially those in the spiritual ocean tier. After his head fell off, he didn't immediately die, still prancing around for a while before finally thumping onto the ground, hands and legs still twitching. Hiss! How was this possible? Despite Pu Chuan having the cultivation of the third layer of the spiritual ocean tier, he was killed with a single punch. And the one who attacked was a 5 to 6-year-old little girl. Who could believe this? Ho! Hu Niu bared her teeth and roared, striking once again. Pa! Each of her punches took care of one person, rapidly reaping their lives. With her terrifying high speed, even a spiritual pedestal tier warrior would have a headache, let alone spiritual ocean tier ones. Run! 10 people instantly turned into 3 remaining, all of them breaking into a run. But competing in speed with Hu Niu? Truly laughable. Within a mere 2 breaths, the 3 people all had their hearts blasted by a single punch. 10 people completely annihilated. Hu Niu hadn't had enough as she turned her fierce gaze behind. Her divine consciousness was extremely sensitive, easily capable discovering that there were more people behind. However, it was too far, she couldn't find exactly where these people were in that moment. Run! These people clearly saw that a young lady killed 10 spiritual ocean tier warriors in a clean sweep. Such battle prowess was completely freakish. They didn't want to throw away their lives, running hurriedly towards the stronghold. Ling Han only laughed, but didn't chase after them for an open slaughter. Let's go! He held on to Hu Niu's hand, continuing onwards. Truly out of the ordinary. On a large tree afar, a 60-year-old man focused his gaze on the entire process. Ding Gao Yang, not only is that youngster a freak, but so is that young lady. That speed, tisk, extremely surprising. Behind the old man stood Ding Gao Yang and Wan Qing, both appearing very respectful. Elder Mo, you're a spiritual pedestal tier elite. No matter how freakish they are, they wouldn't be your match. Ding Gao Yang bootlicked hurriedly. Elder Mo felt pleased, revealing a smile. He said, dealing with two spiritual ocean tier opponents, the price tag won't the previous night has to double. Ding Gao Yang instantly revealed a pained expression. Could asking a spiritual pedestal tier elite to take on a task be cheap? Now it just had to be doubled. He only hoped that the belongings on Ling Han were worth that price, otherwise he'd suffer a tremendous loss. Elder Mo looked at Wan Qing once more, revealing a perverted expression, and said, and let Wan Qing stay over at this old man's tonight for a night. Ding Gao Yang immediately jumped in anger. This old man had gone too far, still coveting his woman. He snorted and said, Elder Mo, don't you take it too far, and don't forget who my brother is. Elder Mo involuntarily shivered inside. *XIN was a figure on the previous prodigy roll, and his rank wasn't low either. Those who could ascend onto the roll would definitely reach the flower blossom tier as long as they didn't die. There was never an exception. This was the dark demon forest, where fists were words. If he offended *XIN, the result would be unimaginable. Even the Gus demon clan wouldn't stand up for him, would simply die for nothing. Humph, then just twice the pay. Elder Mo snorted and leapt down from the treetop, chasing in the direction of Ling Han and Hu Niu. He was in a bad mood, and could use these two to vent his anger. Follow him, I want to see how that guy dies, Ding Wanqing said to Ding Gao Yang. The two also chased behind. A spiritual pedestal to warrior's speed was more than just fast, and Ling Han and Hu Niu weren't walking too quickly, so after 1 or 2 minutes, Elder Mo already caught up. The presence of a spiritual pedestal tier cultivator spread out, appearing extremely terrifying. Youngster, leave your life here, he said threateningly. Ling Han stopped, turned around, looked at the other person, and said, if I recall correctly, you're one of the guardians of the stronghold, surnamed Mo, right? Gaga, that's right. Elder Mo laughed eerily. Since you know this old man's identity, why not surrender yourself? While they spoke, Ding Gao Yang and Ding Wanqing also caught up. Ling Han looked at Ding Gao Yang once and came to a realization. This was the middle-aged man who told him about the place where the cold and heat intertwined. It turned out he intentionally lured him out of the stronghold so as to let other people deal with him. He laughed loudly and said, Old man, one moment you're a guardian, and the next moment you're a bandit. Your old face really changes quick. Impudence. Elder Mo was furious, swatting from afar as origin power shot out and turned into a giant palm, pressing towards Ling Han. This was a spiritual pedestal tier elite's attack locked in anger. How could its power not be shocking? Chapter 392 3 Feet Iron Body. Chapter 392 3 Feet Iron Body. Reverie _ Ling Han was unafraid. With the Hong, the thunder battle armor burned brightly, forming a lightning barrier in front of his body. Pang! The large hand of origin power swatted down, smashing into the lightning barrier as if lightning that came from the ground, shaking heaven and earth and almost turning Ding Gao Yang and Ding Wanqing deaf. After this attack, Elder Mo's large hand made of origin power already shattered, and Ling Han still stood upright. Treasure armor! Elder Mo immediately revealed a greedy look. Being able to neutralize one of his angry attacks, this treasure armor was definitely not simple. Besides, if it had such power in the hands of a spiritual ocean tier warrior, what if it were in his hands? He would probably be invincible within the spiritual pedestal tier. Gaga, well, thank you. Elder Mo attacked again, trying to grab Ling Han. This time, he not only shot out origin power, but also infused the attack with his martial intent, sending out radiant and boundless light as if a spirit was coming out. The spiritual pedestal tier meant building a heaven-reaching spiritual pedestal inside the spiritual ocean, connecting heaven and earth. Precisely because of the crossover in the spiritual pedestal tier could living beings transcend mortals. Such an elite's power was way too strong. Ling Han simply laughed, unleashing the demon birth sword. Wang, 2 obscure vein-like lines lit up, emitting a powerful presence that could awe both heaven and hell. Elder Mo's complexion immediately turned white. His breath turned rugged and his palm instantly swatted nothing. "What?" The old fellow stared at the sword in Ling Han's hand and cried out. "What sort of spirit tool is this? How could it have such a terrifying oppressive aura?" Ling Han smiled lightly. In reality, the Thunder Battle Armor was also a 10th tier spirit tool, but it was damaged too heavily, losing its oppressive aura. Otherwise, when he added the two 10th tier spirit tools together, it would be guaranteed that the old man wouldn't even be able to stand. Unfortunately, spirit tools weren't enchanted decrees. One could be used for a long time and the other was a disposable, so in terms of power, spirit tools couldn't compare against enchanted degrees of the same tier, unless the spirit tool had a tool spirit that could come to life on its own. If he truly had a 10th tier spirit tool with a controllable tool spirit, then Ling Han would be able to sweep all of heaven tier. "Old man, reach out your neck, I can let you experience the power of a spirit tool." Ling Han smiled. "Impudence!" Elder Mo snorted. A mere spiritual ocean tier warrior dared to speak rudely in front of him? Didn't he know of respect for seniority in the world of martial arts? He unleashed a bronze ring, waving it fiercely. With a hoo, a raging flame turned into a firewolf, pouncing at Ling Han. Ling Han struck with his sword. Although Demon Birth's sword only had 2 vein-like lines activated, the tear of it was clearly there. 7 flashes of sword chi shot out together, compounded by Demon Birth's sword. The power of the sword chi was absolutely invincible. Pu. As expected, although the Fire Wolf was launched by a 5th tier spirit tool, once it clashed with 7 flashes of sword chi, it immediately scattered. In its anguished wailing, it immediately turned into a flame, evaporating into the air. Ding Gao Yang and Ding Wanqing revealed shocked expression at the same time. This youngster was too scary. A spiritual pedestal tier cultivator attacked and unleashed the might of a spirit tool, yet he still couldn't deal with Ling Han. In reality, Ling Han didn't even use his full strength, or else with his current cultivation on top of 2 10th tier spirit tools, his battle prowess would definitely surpass 20 stars. So what if it was an opponent at the first layer of the spiritual pedestal tier he was facing? Laws have no bounds, 4 division and 8 conjunctions. Elder Mo began to fight desperately. He couldn't tolerate being inferior to a spiritual ocean tier junior. Additionally, Ling Han was so fierce now, just how strong would he be when he broke through to the spiritual pedestal tier? Therefore, he had to be killed to end all future troubles. As he bellowed, his body size suddenly increased, growing taller by a fold. Pa! The clothes on his body completely broke into pieces. Fortunately, there was still underwear to act as a fig leaf, or else it would be too offensive a view to public decency. His presence also increased by a whole lot, rocketing from the 2nd layer of the spiritual pedestal tier to the 4th layer. Ling Han shook his head and said, "Your power manifestation is too weak. Other people measure 30 feet as bronze body, 300 feet as silver body, and 3,000 feet as gold body, yet yours is only 3 feet. Is that an iron body?" Hunyo instantly giggled. If other people didn't give Ling Han face, she obviously would. Die! Elder Mo raised his foot high up and then stepped down fiercely at Ling Han. "Like I said, your power manifestation is too weak. Using it is an absolute joke." Ling Han raised his sword and carried out the 4-season sword art as the conception of spring, summer, winter, and autumn continued endlessly. In theory, his power was far short of Elder Mo's, but with the Thunder Battle Armor's blessing on top of the sharpness of Demon Birth Sword, he could match the battle prowess of a 4-star spiritual pedestal tier warrior. Of course, other than him, how many other people in the world could take out 2 10th tier spirit tools? The two battled fiercely while Ding Gao Yang and Ding Wanqing looked on with their jaws slack. It turned out that Ling Han's battle prowess was overbearing to such a degree. They really shouldn't have provoked such a freak. But now, they could only pray that Elder Mo would not disappoint them and absolutely suppress Ling Han, otherwise they were doomed. However, the situation was worsening. Although Elder Mo's battle prowess was certainly astounding, Ling Han had the Thunder Battle Armor's protection, so Elder Mo couldn't harm him at all. Contrarily, Ling Han's attacks were enough to cause considerable threat to Elder Mo. This was a completely unequal battle. Impossible! How could this be? That's the spiritual pedestal tier! Ding Gaoyang and Ding Wanqing were numb across their faces. Unexpectedly, Ding Wanqing was first to react and said, "Take this chance, hurry back to the stronghold. As long as we hide there, even that kid wouldn't dare come kill us in there. All right, let's go. Once my older brother comes, this brat will die for sure." They hurriedly turned to leave, but as they turned around, a beautifully decked-out little girl stood quietly in front of them. She was so cute that one would have the urge to squeeze her little face. However, Ding Gaoyang and Ding Wanqing were struck with terror. This little princess had attacked viciously and her battle prowess was shocking. She wiped out 10 spiritual ocean tier warriors almost instantly, even they could only be ashamed of being inferior. She was absolutely a little devil. And now, the little devil blocked their path. "Little lady, be good, let us leave, all right?" Ding Wanqing tried hard to squeeze out a gentle smile. "Not all right, Niu won't let you guys go." Hu Niu stared at the two. She only planned to block this too, leaving it to Ling Han to take care of them. "Damned little girl!" Ding Gaoyang's gaze turned grim. As his hand swayed, a sharp sword was already in his hand. On the blade were red vein-like lines that emitted a gloomy and dreadful presence. "Blood Wave Sword!" Ding Wanqing exulted. "Brother Gaoyang, when did the family pass on the Blood Wave Sword to you? Ha! Now we won't have to be afraid of this cheap little brat." Ding Gaoyang didn't respond, waving his sword at Hu Niu. Blood-red lines like spider webs spread out, covering the entire world. Chapter 393 Ice-Fire Gourd Valley. Chapter 393 Ice-Fire Gourd Valley. Reverie _ Hu Niu was completely unafraid. Her small body scuttled through the red vein-like lines, and if she couldn't avoid it, she used her nails and mouth to tear and bite it apart. Such terrifying ability made Ding Gaoyang and Ding Wanqing dumbstruck. Two freaks, they were definitely two freaks. On the other side, Ling Han had already completely gained the upper hand. He didn't even need to use the 3 styles of black origin. His right hand unleashed the 4-seasoned sword art, and his left hand clenched into a fist, blasting out War Elephant Fist continuously. 7 flashes of sword chi flew unhindered. With the sharpness of Demon Birth Sword, even a spiritual pedestal tier wouldn't dare to receive it head-on, or else it would at least leave a gash and at worst, sever his hands or feet. Ling Han was somewhat in a bad mood. He could only launch 7 flashes of sword chi, but couldn't send out 6 flashes of fist chi at the same time. The two things couldn't be used simultaneously. He was very depressed, but immediately laughed loudly. If it could be stacked infinitely, then he could strike with his sword, send out punches, and throw kicks. How much chi would he shoot out? "Old man, it's time to end this," Ling Han said. He had no time to tangle with him. Zhu Xuan Er came here earlier than he did, and since that woman's charm was tremendous, who knew how many people it could influence in helping her find crimson-red chilling ice grass? He had to hurry. Elder Mo was both shocked and angered. As a spiritual pedestal tier elite, he was actually suppressed by a youngster? He felt very unwilling to be outdone. It was mainly because of the 2 spirit tools that were too domineering on Ling Han, making him unsuccessful in his attacks and confounded in his defenses. If this went on, he would truly lose. "Youngster, we have no grudge and this old man was deceived, so why not just stop the battle now?" He thought of retreating, finding no reason to fight Ling Han to the death. He only received some benefits from Ding Gaoyang. It wouldn't be worth it at all if he fought so desperately. Ling Han sneered and said, "That's really funny. You chased to kill me, and if you could kill me, you definitely wouldn't show mercy. When you can't beat me, you actually want to leave just by saying we have no grudges. Old dog, your head got asterisk messed up? Brat, how dare you?" Elder Mo was trembling with anger. This kid's mouth was too malicious. His gaze turned grim as he said, "You really want to force this old man to fight to the death? Whether you fight to the death or not, the result will be the same," Ling Han said indifferently, taking a deep breath as Mysterious 3000 was ready to be launched. Humph! Elder Mo threw 3 consecutive palms, and actually turned tail and ran. Still want to run now? Too late! Ling Han unleashed his sword as the Mysterious 3000 was launched. Shio, 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 800 sword lights moved simultaneously, covering the sky and the earth. This was sword light set off by the demon birth sword. What kind of power would it have? Elder Mo turned around, raising his palm to parry, but the sword light came pouring vast and mighty, swallowing him like a tsunami. When all the sword light disappeared, Elder Mo disappeared from the spot and only fragments of blood, flesh, and bones fluttered in the air. Ling Han leapt over, picking up a ring that once belonged to Elder Mo from the ground. He then looked at Ding Gao Yang and Ding Wanqing, who were obstructed by Hu Nuthi, wanted to escape but just couldn't manage to. Nyo Nyo, let me! Ling Han charged over sword in hand. Ding Gao Yang and Ding Wanqing were panic-stricken. Ling Han even killed Elder Mo, and in comparison, what were they? Friend, keep calm, we're Ding family's people. The Ding family, for Wei City's Ding family. The Lord Master is a flower blossom tier elite. My brother is Ding *Xian, a figure on the last term's prodigy roll. Now he's at the cultivation of the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, and is in this forest. Ding Gaoyang said, pretending to be calm. Hu Niu was unable to be reasoned with. Ling Han wouldn't also be unreasonable, right? Ling Han scoffed and said with a smile, Don't they say that backgrounds are useless in the Dark Demon Forest? No kidding. Inside the Dark Demon Forest, one's background was certainly useless. They could only look at who was the stronger one. The problem was that they were no match for him now, so Ding Gao Yang could only bring out his background to scare people. Ding Gao Yang saw that Ling Han didn't immediately attack, and thinking that it worked, he hurriedly said, Friend, it's all only a misunderstanding. Hee, me killing you guys is also just a misunderstanding. Ling Han laughed, and waved his sword, striking outwards. Pu 2 flashes of sword chi flew by and Ding Gao Yang and Ding Wanqing were easily killed. In front of Ling Han, who brandished a 10th tier spirit tool, it would be strange if they weren't killed in one move. Ling Han picked up 2 more spatial rings. The profits were pretty good. Let's go, Ling Han said with a smile. Hu Niu immediately agreed in a crisp voice and began signing cheerfully. This primitive forest was the place where she felt most at ease. While walking, Ling Han rummaged through the things inside the 3 spatial rings. Ding Gao Yang and Ding Wanqing's spatial rings were almost all empty. This was normal as they had just arrived at the Dark Demon Forest for medicinal harvesting and naturally wouldn't have any gains yet. However, Elder Mo's spatial ring had plenty of origin crystals. Majority was 1-star ones, and only a dozen were 2-stars. It wasn't abundant, either. Other than origin crystals, there was also a book of martial arts technique as well as a map. Ling Han stored everything in the Black Tower, then took out and flipped through the book. Surprisingly, it was a claw technique at Earth grade, but Elder Mo didn't display it earlier, most likely having obtained it just recently. Earth grade martial arts techniques could only be cultivated at the spiritual pedestal tier. Ling Han threw this book into the Black Tower, then looked at the map again. With a single glance, he revealed a smile. This was a very detailed map of the Dark Demon Forest. Every single place other than the core region was labeled. For example, every single stronghold and what force it belonged to, and what areas had precious spirit medicines. Other than that, the area's flower blossom tier beasts were active and were also marked by a red circle to emphasize danger. Not bad, not bad, this map was quite valuable. Ling Han searched briefly. The place Ding Gao Yang had mentioned was labeled Icefire Gourd Valley. On the map, half the area had been covered by chilling ice for years, while the other half had lava spurting out with scarlet flames surging into the sky. It certainly was a place where the cold and heat intertwined. This place could give birth to crimson red chilling ice grass. Ling Han hurried over. The distance wasn't too big. Inside the valley was a peak stage spiritual pedestal tier beast. It was an extremely terrifying large snake, and it was very sly. When it encountered flower blossom tier cultivators, it would worm into the ice caves to hide, and when it encountered other martial artists, it would attack unrelentingly. Thus, very few people entered this valley. However, with the valley's harsh conditions, it was almost impossible to birth any other spirit medicines, so no flower blossom tier elite intentionally went to kill this large snake, while the medicine harvesters stayed far away. One day later, he arrived at the Gourd Valley. He hadn't entered the valley yet but was suddenly alerted, turning around in a rush to see that a person had appeared unknowingly 30 feet away. Ao Feng! This guy definitely came chasing after him, but it was the disguised identity he pursued. Han Lin. Ao Feng had a killing intent written all across the face, but seeing Ling Han turn his head, he was momentarily startled. It actually wasn't the one he was searching for, so how come they looked so similar from behind? Chapter 394 Encountering Ao Feng again. Chapter 394 Encountering Ao Feng again. Reverie _ Ling Han looked at Ao Feng. Several months had passed, yet this genius of the Ao family already crossed into the flower blossom tier. He had an intangible constitution, clearly standing there yet non-existent like the void. That feeling made him sick to the point of wanting to vomit. The best solution was not to look at him. Flower blossom tiers surpassed mortals. Even spiritual ocean tier warriors couldn't stare at the man inkling of their power. His expression was calm, but inside he was extremely vigilant. Flower blossom tier martial artists were too strong, such that even if he were at the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier now, he wouldn't necessarily be able to resist. This limit was extremely hard to cross over. If Ao Feng made a move, he would immediately enter the Black Tower. Thunder battle armor? Not to mention whether the power it could unleash in his hands was able to block Ao Feng or not, as long as he used it. Wasn't it equivalent to telling Ao Feng that he was Han Lin? Who are you? Ao Feng asked indifferently, unleashing his godly might like a supreme god. Cocky, Ling Han said inwardly. Only those newbies who just crossed into the flower blossom tier would make a show of their presence. It was a sort of mentality, as their strength surpassed the mortal limit, but would their mentality also make the same leap? He showed no sign of fear, took out his golden badge, brandishing it, and said, I am Ling Han, low-level Earth-grade alchemist. Hiss! Ao Feng involuntarily gasped in astonishment. Such a young Earth-grade alchemist? That was way too ridiculous. However, with his vision, he could tell that the badge was real with a single glance. He was a flower blossom tier warrior, which was certainly out of the ordinary. The problem was that low-level Earth-grade alchemists were treated as equals to flower blossom tier warriors, and because of the rarity of alchemists, they were actually a level higher. Even spiritual infant tier elites had to be very courteous toward alchemists. But could flower blossom tiers earn the courtesy of spiritual infant tier warriors? No way. The tiers of martial arts were rigidly stratified. If someone at the flower blossom tier were smug in front of someone in the spiritual infant tier, the former would be swatted to death. Unless they had a father at the deity transformation tier or the heaven tier or something, and if you had a shattering void tier cultivator as your father, then making spiritual infant tiers kneel down to lick your feet wasn't something impossible. So it's Master Ling. Ao Feng withdrew his lofty attitude. He just entered the flower blossom, and there might be a time in the future where he needed to ask Ling Han to refine pills. Besides, alchemists were a very united group, so offending one could mean offending the entire group. Thus, he'd rather not become enemies with Ling Han. Of course, it was mainly because he had the thought of asking Ling Han to refine pills in the future, or else who would know that he killed Ling Han in the Dark Demon Forest? Ling Han cupped his hands and said, You're too polite. He was neither cold nor indifferent, just right in expressing the arrogance peculiar to alchemists. This was his true quality, so he naturally handled it with ease. How come Master Ling has come to Dark Demon Forest alone? No, with just the two of you? Ao Feng asked. He had just saw Hu Niu and felt somewhat astounded that he overlooked her earlier. At such heights as his, all things should be reflected in his consciousness regardless of size, but he overlooked Hu Niu, an extremely strange thing. Fortunately, it was just a 5 to 6 years old little girl. It mattered not if he overlooked her. I need a stock of spirit medicine. If Brother Ao can find it, there'll definitely be a handsome reward, Ling Han said smilingly. Hearing this, Ao Feng instantly felt full of revulsion within. He was a flower blossom tier, but a 17 to 18-year-old youngster with the spiritual ocean tier cultivation was actually calling him a brother. It naturally made him feel very out of sorts. It couldn't be denied that Ling Han was an earth-grade alchemist, and having a low cultivation and being young weren't a problem at all. What spirit medicine is Master Ling searching for? Ao Feng asked. He had set out to get on friendly terms with Ling Han, and now he naturally placed his stance lower. Crimson red chilling ice grass, Ling Han said seriously while laughing inwardly. If Ao Feng really found the spirit medicine, then when he refined the restore spirit pill for Ling Dong Xing in the future, making his father's cultivation skyrocket before at last suppressing Ao Feng and telling Ao Feng the truth, would this guy spurt out blood from anger? It was truly something to look forward to. All right, I've remembered it. If there's a chance, I'll definitely deliver the spirit medicine myself. Ao Feng nodded, then went on. I have other things to take care of, farewell. Please. Ling Han also nodded. Ao Feng left treading on wind, and very soon disappeared into the horizon. Ling Han's gaze turned cold. He was contemplating if he should become blood brothers with Ao Feng. Would this guy have to call Ling Dong Xing uncle? Ha! He immediately shook his head and forgot such distasteful stuff. Ling Han dislikes that bad guy. Hu Niu suddenly asked. Ling Han said smilingly. Niu is real smart, you even saw through that. Hu Niu giggled. She was most sensitive to presence and emotions, even if Ling Han intentionally suppressed the hatred, deceiving even Ao Feng, it couldn't escape Hu Niu's eyes. However, we'll have to be careful from now on, Ling Han said, walking into the valley with Hu Niu. The ice-fire Gourd Valley was half a world of ice and half surging with lava. Once one entered, there was boundless snow that covered the entire valley, a field of white without a single shred or inch of motley. It was a rather splendid sight. There's a large snake here, Ling Han said. Niu wants to eat snake meat. Hu Niu's eyes immediately lit up, saliva almost drooling out. Ling Han laughed loudly and said, That's a peak stage spiritual pedestal tier being. I can't beat it, can you? Niu can't beat it. Hu Niu sighed dejectedly, appearing extremely disappointed. This shock was too great for a foodie. Our main purpose is to find crimson red chilling ice grass. This large snake can be taken care of when we come back in the future, Ling Han said. And Hu Niu nodded lovably. The two walked very fast, passing through the ice valley, and a sea of fire appeared before them, crimson-colored lava rolling around, a scene that would make one's scalp creep. Between the sea of fire and the layer of ice was an expanse of boiling water that acted as a buffer. However, no matter whether it was the sea of fire or the layer of ice, the power of either was extremely strong, so either was devoured by the other, existing like so for several thousand years. To Ling Han's knowledge, there had been no such place like the Dark Demon Forest. Well, there might have been such a place, just that he didn't know after all. The vast lands were too massive. Ling Han carefully searched locations where crimson red chilling ice grass could grow. Such a spirit medicine could only survive in the buffer zone, absorbing the power of the chilling ice and the raging flames, or else it wouldn't be able to survive at all. However, the buffer zone was all boiling water, without any surfacing rocks. This dictated that crimson red chilling ice grass couldn't possibly grow, because this spirit grass disliked water environment. He came for nothing. Ling Han took out the map. On it were several special landforms that were marked, but other than this ice-fire Gourd Valley, there were no other places that was suitable for the growth of crimson red chilling ice grass. Unless it was Dark Demon Forest's core area. Hong! At this moment, earth-shattering sounds reverberated as a fully silver-colored large snake broke through the ice. The snake's head alone was several meters high, and the length of the snake's entire body was extremely shocking. Ling Han was astounded not because of the large snake's length, but because of the tumor on the top of its head. Was it turning into a flood dragon? Chapter 395 Battling the Great Snake. Chapter 395 Battling the Great Snake. Reverie _ Snakes turned into flood dragons, and flood dragons turned into dragons. Such was the usual path of transformation. The problem was that flood dragons had 2 horns, but what was that tumor on its head? Was it transforming into a unicorn? Hu Niu immediately crouched down, opened her mouth, and revealed her white teeth, making a roaring stance. If she had fur, it would definitely be standing on ends. Ling Han also revealed a vigilant look. This great snake was the tyrant of the Gourd Valley, a 9th-layer spiritual pedestal existence. But for some reason, it gave Ling Han a feeling that it was scarier than Ao Feng. That was quite right. It was because Hu Niu also had that feeling that she immediately entered a defensive and threatening stance. Earlier, when Ao Feng appeared, Hu Niu was very calm. The giant snake slowly stood up. The snake head kept rising, as if its body was endlessly long. After it had reached the height of the valley, its body still wasn't fully out of the layer of ice. This was very unbelievable. It was at least 1,000 meters, and maybe several thousand meters long. Ling Han was puzzled. Could a spiritual pedestal tier beast snake grow this large? The larger the body, the more powerful a living creature was. For example, if a living creature during their maturity could grow to the size of the vast lands, then it didn't need to cultivate. It only had to trample down a few times. Even if the vast lands didn't shatter, the people and other beasts would be decimated and only a few elites could survive. Precisely because of this, the heavens strictly limited a living being's body size. For beasts, only when their strengths increased could their size also increase accordingly. For a spiritual pedestal tier, the body size limit was about 100 meters, and only a flower blossom tier beast could reach 1,000 meters, but not surpass this limit. However, this large snake was only at the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, and its body size not only broke past 100, but also 1,000 meters, advancing into the spiritual infant tiers. On top of that, the tumor on its head was even stranger. There had never been stories of a spiritual pedestal tier snake beast that could turn into a flood dragon. Turning into a flood dragon was something to happen after heaven tier. Strange, too strange. It was a long story, but it was a matter of a breath's time. With a hong, the large snake descended from the sky and smashed its head straight down, barbaric and rough, using terrifying power to gain the upper hand. Ling Han's face was all green. He took hold of Hu Niu, who still wanted to soar into the sky to battle to her heart's content, and their figures flashed. They entered the Black Tower. With the giant snake's power, weight, and inertia of falling from the sky, such massive strength was enough to pound him and Hu Niu into minced meat, guaranteeing their deaths through and through. This was truly unreasonable. There was no comparison of skills, but simply crushing by brute force, yet it completely unleashed the great snake's power. Strange, why do I sense a familiar smell on this large snake? Ling Han pondered, stroking his chin. Spiritual pedestal tier beasts all had a special elemental attack, for example, spraying chilling mist or venom, and Ling Han had even seen beast snakes that turned all its scales into sharp blades and launched them. However, this large snake didn't seem to plan on using its special abilities at all. Smashing with its head right off the bat, it was extremely well practiced. The snake had to be a habitual offender. Ling Han looked outside through the Black Tower, seeing that the large snake was searching for his and Hu Niu's flesh and blood. The large snake's eyes revealed it was at a loss, seeming to be puzzled by how the two just disappeared. Idiot! Extreme idiot! Ling Han felt it even stranger. Being able to cultivate to peak stage of the spiritual pedestal tier, which was one step away from crossing over the line of mortals, how could its intelligence be so lacking? Beasts possess very high intelligence, and the higher their tier, the smarter they were. The intellect of flower blossom tier beasts was definitely no lower than that of the wise men. However, no matter how he looked, this large snake was sluggish and stupid, as if it only knew how to smash people with its head, battling with its instinct. Let's try to fight it. Ling Han came to a decision, and Xiao, his figure flashed, exiting the Black Tower with demon birth sword in hand and thunder battle armor already activated. Hong, His left hand launched a flash of lightning while his right hand swung the sword, and Xiao, 7 flashes of sword chi flew unhindered. Pu, 2 attacks fired into the large snake's body, but what surprised Ling Han was that the 7 flashes of sword chi only left a few white marks on the snake's scales, while the lightning's effects were only a bit greater, penetrating through scales and leaving a wound on the large body. However, for a large snake, this was truly neither painful nor ticklish. The large snake was infuriated, smashing its head downwards again. Ling Han hurriedly entered the Black Tower, evading this attack. Peng! The entire valley trembled, showing the giant snake's terrifying power. Ling Han, however, laughed and said to himself, "If this were another 9th layer spiritual pedestal tier, I really wouldn't be able to deal with it, but this snake is too stupid, I could just exhaust it to death." He exited the Black Tower again, then shot out both fists continuously and activated Thunder Battle Armor's power, forming flashes of lightning and firing it towards the large snake's eyes. The large snake was stupid for sure, but its instincts allowed it to avoid injuries to vital parts such as the eyes. It immediately tilted its head to evade. Then, it smashed its head downwards again, setting the valley quaking. Ceaselessly accumulated snow shot into the sky, then snowflakes fluttered all over the sky, while on the other side, the sea of flames boiled like the tide, splashing crimson red lava. Ling Han continued to enter and exit the Black Tower, tirelessly attacking the large snake's eyes. He only had to succeed once to gain a great victory, so he was absolutely in no rush. The large snake was still sluggishly stupid, and if Ling Han's strength were stronger, it would definitely have drilled into the layer of ice long ago, not fighting Ling Han at all. However, from its point of view, Ling Han would die in one smash, and faced with such a tick, how could it run? Besides, it was continually getting struck by Ling Han, and although it was thick-skinned, feeling only a bit of pain, the anger made it resolve to kill Ling Han. One man and one snake exhausted each other like this. Several hours later, the large snake appeared more irritable, continuously smashing its head at the ground as if it held the initiative. Ling Han searched for an opportune moment. The instant the large snake pounded the ground, he attacked from the Black Tower. Xiao, a flurry of sword strikes, 800 rays of sword light soared into the sky. It was mysterious 3000. Pu, the sword light fired simultaneously at the large snake's right eye. At this time, the large snake's intimidating defensive power was displayed to its greatest extent. Even if the eye was a very frail vital area, several hundred rays of sword light shot into it were actually not enough to shatter it at first. Only after the last 100 rays of sword light surged by did the eyeball finally show a gash. Then, as if porcelain had been smashed, it suddenly shattered. With a paw, a body of liquid poured out like tidal water from a dike. Under the pain, the large snake violently twisted, and a massive power bashed sideways and straight on. The entire valley was as if it were going to be demolished. Ling Han entered the Black Tower, immediately recovering origin power. Now, striking out mysterious 3000 at full strength wouldn't consume all his power, but 1/3 still seemed to have been depleted. He crushed a dozen pieces of origin crystal, and recovered his origin power at an extremely fast pace. He exited the Black Tower again after that, and attacked the hole opened up in the large snake's eye with his sword. 2 vein-like lines were activated on the demon birth sword. Sword chi flew unhindered as Ling Han slashed recklessly to his heart's content. Chapter 396 Chaos Origin Source. Chapter 396 Chaos Origin Source. Reverie _ Despite the large snake's stubborn frame that far surpassed normal spiritual pedestal tier beasts, it couldn't tolerate a flurry of slashes inside its head. Not to mention, Ling Han used the demon birth sword, a 10th tier spirit tool. Even if it could only emit a tiny bit of its power, the power of its sharpness was plain to see. Add the thunder battle armor's prowess, and the large snake was electrocute, burned on the inside and crisp on the outside. Slash, 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 Ling Han destroyed to his heart's content. He bustled about in the snake's head, and 10 minutes later, the large snake no longer showed any signs of movement. Ling Han swung his sword and broke through the head, feeling fatigue all over, and sat abruptly onto the ground. This large snake was truly terrifying. Under the circumstances of allowing him to attack at will, he still exhausted all his energy to kill it. If this large snake possessed the intellect of a normal beast, then the result would be the complete opposite. He wouldn't be able to do anything about this huge monster. Ling Han let Hu Niu out. The little girl kept kicking the large snake, fully showing her childish temperament. Ling Han was very interested in the bump on the snake's head because it meant that it was growing flood dragon horns, which were treasures, absolute treasures. Flood dragon horns ground to dust could be used in medicine. Their effects were manifold, of which the most famous was boosting the sex drive, making men as vigorous as a dragon and as fierce as a tiger. Of course, Ling Han was not at all interested in boosting his sex drive. He was very confident in this area. According to the legends, a true dragon was an auspicious sign of the divine plane, possessing the supreme power of toppling mountains and overturning seas. Inside the flood dragon horn was a shred of the true dragon's godly qualities, and if it could be extracted, wouldn't that be kick*SS? He used the demon birth sword as a butcher's knife, slicing the bump on the snake's head carefully in case it damaged the flood dragon horns. The progress was very slow, not that demon birth sword wasn't sharp enough, but Ling Han's power was a bit weak. This large snake's scales were truly too hard, making his progress extremely slow. However, half an hour later, Ling Han finally peeled off the scales, cutting open the skin and revealing the bump completely. He sliced it open, but didn't find the corneum, so he cut and cut. Only after digging much more did a small black dot appear. Ling Han was startled. He sliced open the surrounding flesh, only to find that it was actually tiny black stone. He reached to grab it, but as he made contact he groaned. Endless chaos charged into his consciousness, making his head feel like it was about to burst. He forcefully endured it, wanting to enter the Black Tower. However, as his consciousness was attacked, he actually couldn't immediately make any contact with the Black Tower. He couldn't help but be shocked as the thoughts of chaos in his consciousness continued to expand. Black chi grew from his entire body as his divine consciousness was rapidly being possessed. Ling Han! Hu Niu yelled, baring her teeth and roaring. Ling Han at this moment gave her the feeling of a complete stranger. Ling Han forcefully endured it, maintaining one last shred of clarity. At last, he finally gained contact with the Black Tower, and he entered the Black Tower, instantly summoning supreme power. Waves of black chi surged out from within his body as if a pit of snakes that were reluctant to leave, still wanting to worm its way into his body. However, inside the Black Tower, this was absolutely unrealistic. Ling Han soared into the sky, completely expelling the power of chaos. He breathed rapidly and heavily. It was truly too terrifying. If he were slightly slower, his consciousness would have been infested completely by the chaos. He'd become like the large snake, muddle-headed and living based on instincts. He never would have thought that a small piece of black stone could actually be so dangerous. I understand now. It's no wonder the large snake gave me a familiar feeling. That's demonic chi. Ling Han clapped his hands, finally remembering. He exited the Black Tower. Hu Niu immediately dove towards him, nudging him with her head and looking like she never wanted to let go. All right, I'm fine. Ling Han laughed and rubbed Hu Niu's hair, then looked towards the black stone inside the snake's head. The black stone was the size of a peanut, not uniform in shape and different from a Jura demon emperor. This black stone looked like nothing special and had no shred of demonic chi circulating within it, which was why Ling Han had been careless and almost became infected with no hope of reprieve. He used the demon birth sword to scoop the stone up, and with a paw, the black stone rolled on the ground several times before lying silent on the accumulated snow. A strange scene appeared. The large snake immediately shriveled up, and within only a few breaths' time, the large corpse was already rotten. Its scales turned into ash, and the bones broke one after another. Niu's meat! Hu Niu screamed in anguish. Ling Han's face twitched. Earlier when he was attacked by the chaos from the black stone, the little girl didn't scream so tragically, did she? Alas, a foodie was always going to be a foodie. However, this large snake's peculiarities were all because of this black stone. Otherwise, how come the entire corpse crumbled once the black stone was taken out? This could explain why a spiritual pedestal tier beast could grow up to several thousand meters, but why the black stone had such effects was another problem. Stinky rock! Hunyo raised her feet and trampled down fiercely at the black stone. The little girl's speed was too fast and Ling Han couldn't stop her in time at all, but he was immediately shocked, because nothing happened to Hunyo after stamping it over and over. Moreover, Hunyo even picked up the black stone, smashing it, yet it still had no influence on her at all. Were the heads of foodies so empty that they couldn't be affected? Ling Han didn't dare to try and let Hunyo take the black stone again, taking Hunyo into the Black Tower before letting Hunyo hand it to him. When the intent of chaos attacked once again as endless demons and hells manifested the chaos of the universe, Ling Han activated the power of the Black Tower. When these demonic thoughts were instantly blocked from his consciousness, he discovered that this could toughen his divine consciousness, though, of course, it was under the Black Tower's help, or else it would be courting death. Small tower, what's this thing? Ling Han asked. Missing too much memory, might know, but can't remember at all right now. Small tower's emotionless voice sounded out. Ling Han put the black stone, looked towards Hunyo, and said, But how did Hunyo block the attack of the chaotic intent? Hunyo pat her chest as she said, Nyo's a genius! Haha, you certainly are a genius! Ling Han remembered the strange spirit base inside her body. Even if he activated Eye of Truth now, he still wouldn't be able to see through Hunyo's dantian. The little girl's strangeness index was also ridiculously high. CC1? Hunyo smiled happily. Ling Han picked up the black stone, weighed it in his hand, and said to himself, It's not bad. It can be used to toughen divine consciousness and increase the soul's strength. Not only that, Small Tower spoke up. There's a shred of Chaos Origin Source inside. Chaos Origin Source? What's the heck is that? Ling Han asked. Tao begets one, one begets two, two begets three, three begets all things. Small Tower said. Tao is the great Tao of heaven and earth, and great Tao forms the supreme ultimate, which turns into yin and yang. Yin and yang can also be seen as order and chaos. Ling Han was astounded and said, This piece of black stone can actually trace back to the origin source? Tao begets one, one begets two, two begets three, three begets all things. All things carry the females and embrace the male. And by breathing together, they live in harmony. Chapter 397 Blood Lighthouse Changes Master. Chapter 397 Blood Lighthouse Changes Master. Reverie _ What was Tao? Heaven and Earth's origin source, the true essence of the world. According to legends, gods grasped the Tao of heaven and earth and were invincible in the world, transcending life and death. Martial arts, alchemy, and formations were three different angles of pursuing the origin source, searching for Tao. However, just as Small Tower said, Tao begets one, one begets two, two begets three, and three begets all things. Mortals were commonplace. Even Ling Han, who was a heaven tier in his former life, remained at the level of all living things, striving to trace the source origin and searching for the three. He was still very far off in martial arts, but in alchemy, he reached the peak stage of heaven grade, with 1 foot into the path of godhood, qualifying to contact the three. But now, a small piece of black stone actually contained the chaos origin source, reaching the 2 level. If one could completely grasp the source of chaos within the black stone, couldn't one jump straight into God realm? As Ling Han said that, Small Tower immediately shook in negation and said, Impossible! There is too little chaos origin source within the black stone, and it's only a fragment of the colossal chaos origin source. Even if you could completely grasp a branch of it, it's still far from the chaos source origin. However, I can absorb the shred of chaos origin source, and extract the source power, repairing my body by 1/1000th. That news was massive. After Ling Han was shortly startled, he blurted out, You can extract the power of origin source? And Black Tower is damaged? Even the power of origin source can only repair by 1/1000th? Small Tower shook lightly and said, It's precisely because I was heavily damaged that I was struck to this realm, losing almost all my memories. Extracting the power of origin source shouldn't be hard. My instincts tell me that I can do it, and that this piece of black stone is really too small, so being able to repair 1/1000th is already an optimistic estimate. Ling Han's jaw dropped. Just what level was the Black Tower's existence, needing the power of origin source to repair it? In this lifetime, would he be able to wait till the day the Black Tower completely recovered? However, he was only at the spiritual ocean tier and had already received a piece of black stone, which meant that his fortune was heaven-defying. Perhaps the Black Tower could be repaired without breaking into God realm. One had to be optimistic. Ling Han temporarily had no intention of giving the black stone for Small Tower to refine. The chaos intent could toughen his own martial intent, especially now that he was stuck at 7 flashes of sword. Part of the reason for that was that his martial intent was not tough enough. He exited the Black Tower, bringing Hunyo towards the core area of the Dark Demon Forest. It was very possible that there were more black stones there. After all, the Dark Demon Forest was known for its demonic chi-like mists, and the beasts in the core area were all possessed and terrifying as they thirsted for blood. Before, Ling Han didn't know the reason, but now, thinking about it, if the black stone existed there for a long time, it definitely influenced the environment, thereby influencing the living creatures there. Whether it was for crimson-red chilling ice grass or for the chaos origin source within the black stone, Ling Han had to make this trip. One day later, a stronghold appeared before them again. The stronghold was much smaller than the previous one, but its defensive powers were increased a whole lot. Spiritual Ocean Tier martial artists patrolled the surroundings with weapons in their hands, all extremely alert. Ling Han pondered, deciding to lodge at this stronghold. He walked over and was requested to hand over 5 origin crystals. Fortunately, probably seeing that Hunyo was too small, her ticket fare wasn't collected, saving Ling Han a small amount. This stronghold's infrastructure was also consisting in wooden walls and bamboo houses, but simpler it couldn't be helped, because this was the 3rd ring of the Dark Demon Forest. The entire Dark Demon Forest was divided into 4 rings. The first ring was obviously the core area. Because of the great influence of demonic chi, no single force could set foot there. Normally, only flower blossom tier elites dared to enter it, but they also came and went with haste, not daring to stay long. Next was the second ring, which was the foothold of the Bloodlight House and the Gust Demon clan. It was also the foothold on the foremost front line, often suffering assaults from beasts that came out of the core area. If one wanted to rest and reorganize there, each day of stay would cost 110 origin crystals. Fiery sungrass was in this area. The danger there was still quite high because there was a possibility of encountering flower blossom tier beasts that came from the core area. Ling Han was at the 3rd ring and the nearby beasts were already very frightening. There were spiritual pedestal tier existences. Even martial artists at spiritual pedestal tier had to be careful. Slight inattentiveness would be their perdition. He brought Hunyo to a tavern. It was the best place to seek out information. Great news, great news! Bloodlight House has changed hands. What, is it real? Haha, I just came out of the 2nd ring, only 50,000 meters away from the headquarters of the Bloodlight House. It's news I heard personally, it couldn't possibly be fake. Strange, wasn't the head of Bloodlight House at his prime? How come he abdicated? He didn't abdicate on his own accord, but he was defeated. Hey, Bloodlight House's head is a flower blossom tier warrior. An almighty expert who can stand side by side with Heavenly Silkworm Court's head, Devour Bone Court's head, and Gust Demon Clan's head. He was actually defeated by someone. Exactly, and it's rumored that the one who defeated the Bloodlight House's head is a Grandmaster of Fists, able to burst forth with 10 flashes of fist chi. It was only 19 consecutive punches before Bloodlight House's head was put down, forced to submit his authority. Who was that? That's way too fierce, right? Don't know, that person is very secretive. He calls himself the Fist Emperor. Fist Emperor? That's quite domineering, isn't it? Ling Han listened and was somewhat shocked. Of the 4 large forces, the Blood Lighthouse was forced to change head some major event. Just where did this Fist Emperor come from, not only having strength, but also having high aspirations? Emperor titles shouldn't be used rashly. In his former life, there was only Sword Emperor and Setting Sun Saber Emperor who were called emperors, while he attained supreme accomplishments in alchemy and was still being called the Grand Master of Alchemy. This represented invincibility within a tier. Sword Emperor, invincible in the sword path. Saber Emperor, the sole supremacy in the saber path. As for him, he stood at the peak of alchemy. Calling oneself the Fist Emperor would probably attract many fist experts to challenge him, because if they accepted his title, then it was equivalent to acknowledging that he was first in fist path. How could these Grand Masters of Fists tolerate that? Ling Han stroked his chin. Should he also call himself some sort of emperor and attract some aggro? It seemed to be quite an interesting idea. Your news is not really new, that was at least a month ago. Someone on the side was unwilling to have the limelight taken away, immediately interjecting. Now many figures on the prodigy roll are gathered at the Dark Demon Forest, and that's the most sensational event. Why? This news attracted the curiosity of many. After all, the figures on the prodigy roll were elites that could become flower blossom tier and even spiritual infant tier warriors. With so many of them gathered at the Dark Demon Forest, it could be called a distinguished gathered. It's said that a treasure has come into being at the core of the forest, that person said, feigning mysteriousness. What treasure? Everyone asked in surprise. Chapter 398 Heavenly Luckstone. Chapter 398 Heavenly Luckstone. Reverie _ What treasure? Everyone revealed a curious look. Treasure, just that word alone made people's blood boil. Moreover, it was able to draw the attention of the people on the prodigy roll. Such a treasure was obviously extremely precious. The person chuckled, seeing everyone's gaze concentrated on himself instantly gave rise to a strong sense of vanity. They continued, Exactly what I'm not sure, but I heard it's a rock. A rock? Everyone was astounded. What was so special about that rock that it actually attracted so many figures on the prodigy roll? Ling Han was startled. Could it be the Black Stone? Inside, it harnessed the Chaos Origin Source. However, he immediately shook his head inwardly. Such power, even he couldn't absorb it in his previous lifetime's peak, not to mention a few spiritual ocean tier and spiritual pedestal tier warriors. Leaving other things out, he couldn't even endure the chaos intent inside the Black Stone with his heaven tier divine sense, and had to rely on the Black Tower to suppress it, so other people were naturally even less qualified. Unless, they were as strange as Hunio. Haha, you're slinging the bull, nothing about a rock is worth fighting over. Someone mocked. It really is a rock, I'm not lying to you guys. That person immediately swore. Martial artists all liked respect, and being doubted instantly made the person anxious. However, most people still didn't believe it. What about a rock was worth fighting for? That's right, it certainly is a rock called Heavenly Luckstone, someone said. Yes, I remember now, it is called Heavenly Luckstone, the person from earlier said in a hurry. Everyone couldn't help but look towards the one who revealed the identity of the Heavenly Luck Rock. It was a lanky male in all white clothing. He wore a straw hat, and his appearance couldn't be seen clearly. However, judging from his voice earlier, this person should be quite young. White-robed Sword King, Xinzhong Cheng, someone said with a quaver after seeing the treasured sword he placed on the table. White-robed Sword King! 29th place on North Region's Prodigy Roll. The only one who squeezed into top 40 with the cultivation of the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, absolutely heaven-defying. Everyone cried out one after another. Although Xinzhong Cheng's ranking wasn't the finest, not even squeezing into top 10, he was only at the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. One that could push back 11 first-layer spiritual pedestal tier martial artists with his cultivation. The 40th place even possessed 2-star battle prowess. The freakishness of Xinzhong Cheng could be imagined. Even Ling Han nodded. If it weren't for the demon birth sword and the thunder battle armor, he could at most annihilate a spiritual pedestal tier expert with his own battle prowess while relying on mysterious 3000. However, he was now at the 5th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, still some distance away from the 9th layer. When his and Xinzhong Cheng's cultivations would be the same, his battle prowess would definitely be more than spiritual pedestal tier's 2-star sit would be 4 stars, even 5 stars was possible. Conversely, did Xinzhong Cheng reveal all his trump cards? Like Ling Han, the demon birth sword was used at the most crucial moments, and maybe Xinzhong Cheng also had such a great killing tool? In any case, a warrior at the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier being able to battle spiritual pedestal tier opponents was certainly freakish, and Xinzhong Cheng's current age was only 20. Even Ling Han wouldn't dare to underestimate him. "Dare I ask, young Master Xin, what sort of treasure is Heavenly Luck Stone?" someone asked daringly. Xinzhong Cheng's mark was his treasured sword. A white ribbon was tied to the sword sheath in a butterfly shape. He also wore a white robe all year long. However, since he ascended onto the prodigy role, more people mimicked his attire, so this person might not actually be the true white-robed sword king. Ling Han could be certain that he was Xinzhong Cheng because he felt the presence of an elite, like an unsheathed sword displaying his abilities to the full extent. Heavenly Luck Stone, a blessing of heaven and earth. Refining it into the body for martial artists at the spiritual pedestal tier and below means that the essence inside the stone will have a miraculous effect when breaking through a large tier. It will increase one's overall physique, and once advancing into the large tier, one's battle prowess can rocket 4 to 5 stars. Xinzhong Cheng said in a calm tone. "Pooh," everyone spurted out. Normally, battle prowess surpassing 1 to 2 stars was already quite exceptional, and 3 to 4 stars was the level of geniuses, but Heavenly Luck Stone could directly grant 4 to 5 stars battle prowess. What sort of concept was this? Indeed, a rare worldly treasure. No wonder it attracted so many figure on the prodigy roll. Young Master Shen also came for the Heavenly Luck Stone, right? Someone asked. Of course, young Master Shen is already at the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, obviously suppressing his cultivation and planning on compacting his cultivation before breaking through. With the Heavenly Luck Stone on top of young Master Shen's talents, he could possess battle prowess above 10 stars at the 1st layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. However, Heavenly Luck Stone is so precious, not to mention the figures on the prodigy roll, even those who have already made a name for themselves would come. Moreover, Flower Blossom and spiritual infant tier elites would appear, seizing this opportunity for their descendants. If these elites appear, then the young generation will definitely have no game. Even the people on the prodigy roll added together would be helpless. Ling Han, however, thought about how the news on Heavenly Luck Stone spread. Such a precious thing, anyone would conceal it, so how did everyone end up as if the whole world knew? The answer was soon revealed. 10 days ago, a small scouting team entered the core area, discovering the Heavenly Luck Stone by chance. However, a powerful beast kept watch nearby, so they couldn't seize it, deciding that after they returned, they would recruit people again before moving out. However, this team was an army of malcontents, assembled only temporarily. Some became greedy, so 3 brothers from a clan poisoned and assassinated everyone else on the team. Other than one person who was poisoned, but he himself was a poison expert. Having a degree of poison resistance abilities, he didn't die immediately and escaped to a stronghold, spreading the news before his death. Thus, the people in the entire Dark Demon Forest knew of the Heavenly Luck Stone, but as to where it was exactly, the poisoned person died before saying that, so people only knew that it was in the core area of the forest. Consequently, the news only spread amongst the people in the Dark Demon Forest. The various large sects didn't receive the news yet, but as time went on, it could be imagined that large amounts of elites would come. The Heavenly Luck Stone could create a heaven-defying expert for a sect. It was worthy of a sect elder taking action. Ling Han shook his head. First was the crimson-red chilling ice grass, next was the mysterious black stone, and now was the Heavenly Luck Stone. Was it destined that he wouldn't have peace on this trip? Xinzhong Cheng, never would I have thought to encounter you here, come out to spar a bit. A voice resounded outside the tavern. Someone immediately extended his head to see, crying out, "It's Shadow Weaver Dual Sword Luo De." Shadow Weaver Dual Sword, the 42nd place on the Prodigy roll? The difference is too great, right? No, that was the ranking a year ago. I heard that Luo De has already advanced into the spiritual pedestal tier and beat several famed experts at the second layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. No wonder he dares to issue a challenge. Chapter 399 White-Robed Sword King. Chapter 399 White-Robed Sword King. Reverie _ Xinzhongqing sat upright and still, and said indifferently, "I never spar with an already defeated opponent." "Xinzhongqing, you're scared, right?" Luo Da's voice floated over from outside. Xinzhongqing picked up his wine bowl, took a sip, and said, "I dislike people like you who don't know their own limits, so if you force me to fight, I definitely won't hold back." "Haha, all the better, I want to see how your strength has improved," Luo De said, but his laughter was extremely gloomy, showing extreme displeasure. Xinzhongqing stood up, reached for the sword on the table, and walked with large strides out of the tavern. Hong, the crowd instantly surged out. This was a fierce fight between two figures that ranked towards the front who wouldn't want to witness it. "Let's go check it out too," Ling Han said smilingly. Hu Niu nodded. With one hand grabbing onto the corner of Ling Han's clothes while the other hand didn't forget to grab some dried meat to chew on, she left the tavern together with Ling Han, leaving the stronghold and arriving at an open area outside. At this moment, Xinzhongqing was standing opposite of a 24 to 25-year-old youngster. That youngster's physique was tall and sturdy, probably taller than normal people by 2 heads, and instantly made Xinzhongqing look like a child. This person was obviously Luo De. Such a stalwart guy's choice of weapon was actually not the brute force type like a rod or an axe, but rather a sword as well, and it was 2 short swords, which were like embroidery needles when held in his hands. He looked extremely incongruous. However, no one laughed. Luo De was 42nd place on the Prodigy roll, and that was definitely not earned by joking. "Draw your sword!" Luo De said loudly. "If you can force me to draw my sword, I'll naturally draw it," Xinzhongqing said indifferently. Those words were pretty pretentious, yet the girls that watched the battle in the vicinity shot out smitten radiance from their eyes. "Arrogant!" Luo De attacked, brandishing both short swords. Martial intent burst forth, forming white silk lines that convolved around Xinzhongqing. Ling Han couldn't help but nod. Luo De certainly was a spiritual pedestal tier elite, he just hadn't stabilized his cultivation at mid-stage of the first layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. These silk lines were concentrated from sword chi. He obviously cultivated a strange sword art that could actually turn sword chi into silk lines without it scattering, which was certainly somewhat impressive. Being able to be listed on the Prodigy roll, could he even be a mediocre person? Xinzhongqing used his fingers as swords and shifted his feet, waving his fingers to unleash sword chi. Sword Qi, was it called sword chi? That was because it needed a sword to compound the sharpness of a treasured sword before being used. However, when shot out with fingers, the sharpness would be largely decreased. Why wasn't fist chi sent out instead? That was because the power of fists was in the power of the strike, and not in effects of slicing, cutting, or dicing. Now, Xinzhongqing used his fingers as a sword, and the power of the sword chi was naturally much weakened. If the sword in his hand were a 4th tier or even a 5th tier spirit tool, then the effects would naturally lower even more. Everyone involuntarily cried out. Xinzhongqing was truly talented and bold, being clearly lower than Luo De by a large tier. He still dared to act so arrogant, not even drawing his weapon. However, Xinzhongqing wasn't wildly arrogant, but genuinely talented, moving his fingers as if playing a lute. Xiao, 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 he fired flash after flash of sword chi, just enough to neutralize Luo De's attacks. The two, actually tied. However, Luo De was a large tier higher and using weapons. The 2 short swords were clearly spirit tools on which were shining vein-like lines. Under the situation of having such a large advantage, he could only tie with Xinzhongqing when in fact he already suffered an overwhelming defeat. Hunyo's eyes began to light up, staring at Xinzhongqing's figure and revealing a bellicose expression. Ling Han also somewhat itched to fight as he was also a sword user. As expected of the white-robed sword king, too strong. Being able to match Luo De, who is at the first layer of the spiritual pedestal tier while himself being at the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. If he advances into the spiritual pedestal tier, his estimated battle prowess should rocket to 9 stars or even 10 stars. Yeah, there's still 4 months' time. Xinzhongqing can definitely advance into the spiritual pedestal tier. It'll be a good show at the year-end prodigy battle with yet another anomaly. Everyone nodded one after another, giving complete approval of Xinzhongqing's strength. Luo De roared, unable to accept such a result despite having clearly advanced into the spiritual pedestal tier. He had been assuming that he could rely on the advantage of a large tier to suppress the powerful opponent before him, but still ended up empty-handed. His eyes turned red as he decided to use a few trump cards. He definitely couldn't lose in public. Ha. Are these the so-called experts on North Region's prodigy role? A youngster arrived in a streak. The presence of the spiritual pedestal tier overflowed without restraint, instantly suppressing everyone to the point of gasping for breath. Everyone was shocked. This youngster was only 24 to 25 years of age, yet he was a high-level spiritual pedestal tier warrior and definitely had shocking battle prowess. However, no one recognized his identity. Such a genius should be a well-known figure on the prodigy roll. Xinzhongqing and Luo De immediately stopped their fight, looking at the youngster simultaneously. Truly disappoints me, so weak that I can't bear to look. The youngster shook his head, disdain across his face. Trash like you guys have the nerve to rank on some prodigy roll? It really makes me laugh my head off. Who the hell are you? Luo De said in anger. This guy basically looked down on all 100 people on the prodigy roll. Me? The youngster leapt out, pressing his left hand towards Luo De while firing a fist towards Xinzhongqing. He actually challenged 2 outstanding figures on the prodigy roll at the same time. Luo De immediately slashed with his sword while Xinzhongqing hesitated. With a chang, his long sword was unsheathed. Shwa, 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 7 flashes of sword chi instantly struck towards the youngster. Pun! Pun! With 2 suppressed sounds, Luo De and Xinzhongqing were both sent back, dripping blood from their mouths and suffering a loss on this exchange. Hiss! Everyone couldn't help but be dumbstruck. 1 against 2, fighting 2 prodigies, he not only won completely, but also injured the 2. His strength was truly shocking. Although high-level spiritual pedestal tier certainly should show such a performance, this youngster was only 24 to 25 years old. It could be said as very fair. No wonder he dared to act so arrogantly, he certainly was very monstrous. Who are you exactly? Luo De cried out in surprise. Xinzhongqing took off his bamboo hat and showed an average-looking face. However, his eyes were like dazzling stars, making people stare at them uncontrollably, unable to free themselves. His bellicosity soared through the sky as he was holding his long sword in front of him and emitting waves of a profound aura. Ling Han shook his head slightly. The tier was a shortcoming, but if Xinzhongqing advanced into the spiritual pedestal tier, he would qualify to battle with that youngster. But now, he didn't. That youngster was at the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, and from this attack earlier, his battle prowess should be around 12 stars or 13 stars, not too freakish. However, to crush spiritual ocean tier warriors, the first layer of the spiritual pedestal tier was more than enough. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.